and for the Final Four?
No, I think it's just because of the weather.
It's fabulous yesterday.
It was kind of nice.
Beautiful evening. Perfect night last night. Today, right? Just kind of, yeah. But it's not to say that we don't have plenty to talk about, because the Final Four is approaching. I'm excited about this. There are obviously people that come back for the Final Four for a number of different reasons. And there are people that there are two kind of interviews or topics of relevancy around the Final Four that when you do a radio show, for example, to have people on. There are those that you want to have on just because it's like, let's take a trip down memory lane and talk about this player or that player and great and we've done that, and it's always fun. I mean, it's always fun. I think it was last year, had on Chandler Thompson to talk about just his Sweet 16 run at Ball State. You can never get tired of those kind of stories of yesteryear. Obviously, it was fun talking to Matt Howard, even though Ronald Norred, we had him on for the hiring of that, but just to go back and look at the Final Four runs that Butler had. I've had on years ago, I remember having on in the month of March, Jeff Fryer. And a lot of people are like, who is Jeff Fryer? Now, granted, this was like 15 years ago when I did so, but it would have been, I'm going to guess, probably the 20-year maybe anniversary, maybe 25-year anniversary of Loyola Marymount's run after Hank Gather's passing. And Jeff Fryer, one of the most fun videos to watch when it comes to March Madness, is Jeff Fryer for Loyola Marymount had a 41-point game, I think, where he hit 11 three-point shots. It was in the Long Beach Arena against Michigan, who was the defending national champ in 1990. Bo Kimball was the star of that team. They roared their way into the Sweet 16 and were the toast of the tournament because of the situation with Hank Gathers. And Jeff Fryer was hitting threes from everywhere. He was like 11 of 13 from three-point range or something ridiculous. And Quinn Buckner and Greg Gumbel were doing the game, and they literally were laughing. They literally were laughing, like giggling every time he hit a three because it was just so insane. So we had Jeff Fryer on. It turns out that his grandfather was a automobile designer that designed a winning car for the Indy 500, so that was cool to have him on. So you always have those fun kinds of interviews. Then you have those that are synonymous with March Madness or the tournament around the state of Indiana, but also have connection to the basketball now. And one of those is going to join us on Thursday, and I'm looking forward to it because as we really get into the NIL era and as we really get into the transfer portal era, and it's here. We're in the thick of it now. This is not like still navigating through it. No, we're here. And one of the coaches who has been, I think, the most candid just about the challenges that it creates, not just from a program standpoint and a coaching standpoint, but also from a player's standpoint, is Steve Alford of Nevada. And Alford's going to join us coming up on Thursday. So, too, Jason Gardner going to join us on Thursday. We now know that towards the end of the show as Arizona arrives and the former Indiana Mr. Basketball is here with Arizona working in their basketball office, and he's here with the Cats. He'll join us on Thursday as well. There are a ton of other games, though, beyond just Illinois and Connecticut and Michigan, Arizona, because all levels of the Final Four are here in Indianapolis, and there are national championships that are going to be won in different venues and different things going on around Indy, and a ton of activity. Concerts going on, all of it. Julie Roash is the former commissioner of the Horizon League, now working for Pacer Sports and Entertainment, but she has been helping also to put together, and I think can shed some light to us on everything that goes into putting on this kind of an event and, historically speaking, having all of the events right here in Indianapolis in one weekend. So she's going to join us coming up about 2 o'clock. I'm curious to know things like this, Eddie. Just little things. Who determines which team gets which hotel? Who determines?
I'm guessing the NCAA would determine that.
Well, that's what I mean. But how? Better question. How do they determine that?
That's a good one.
The restaurants and bars. How do they determine, like during the Big Ten tournament, how do they determine which restaurant is officially the Illinois Watch Bar, which one is the Michigan State Watch Bar, et cetera, et cetera? There's a ton that goes into, I should say, just the Final Four and putting it all on. So I'm excited to talk to Julie about that later on in today's show and just kind of get the lowdown on that.
Well, and just the other thing too is Jake, just the communication between the Pacers, the NCAA, the Indiana Sports Corp.
How much they have to work together logistically, right?
Correct, because you've got the Division III, the Division II, and the NIT Championship all in the same day at Cambridge Fieldhouse.
Yeah, which is cool, right? I mean, I don't know, and we'll get an idea from Julie, just like the ticket situation and the calendar and all that, but that would be a really cool day to just go down and just take in some of those games and watch. It's kind of like going and watching the A, 2A, 3A, 4A, the high school state championships all in one day, just after one another and the environment, and I hope a lot of those people are traveling in as well. Now, what we should do, I believe in Hoosier hospitality. I believe in it. Now, I've seen there's something about Southern hospitality I realize, okay? Now, the last two IndyCar races, Arlington, Texas, which is basically Dallas, and Barber. The hospitality at those places is really incredible. It really is. At Arlington, every volunteer when we left was like, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Like the yellow shirt types, right? And then at Barber, when I was in the museum, my broadcast location, which the Barber Vintage Motorsports Museum is amazing. And when I was in the museum, I say that word incorrectly. How do you say that word, Eddie?
Museum?
Say it again.
Museum?
That's how I've always said it, and everyone makes fun of me. I've always said museum. It's museum, right?
I don't know.
It's museum. But I've always said museum.
Why is it Arkansas, not Arkansas?
The facility itself is amazing. And the different people just during the race coming up over the weekend.
Why do we spell refrigerator without a D, but when we say fridge, we spell it with a D?
Also a great question. I've always wondered why the stars at night are big and bright in the Lone Star State. If you really want to know the truth. I stay away. As a matter of fact, do we have the Texas Sounder by chance? I mean, if you go into Texas, the flag is just one star, and they call it the Lone Star State, and the best beer in Texas is Lone Star, right? Yet, if you stop anybody in Texas and you want to let them know where you are, just like we did for the University of Texas Longhorn Sounder during our numbers game, as Pee Wee Herman said better than anybody to display it and illustrate it.
The stars at night are big and bright.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Yeah, it's the Lone Star State. Makes no sense. Which is it? But either way, now I forget what the point I was making.
You're welcome.
The hospitality. So the hospitality down there was great, but Hoosier hospitality, there's something about it. Something about it. And, I've done my part. 1993 NCAA tournament practice date. You've heard me tell it. I went down for practice by myself. Indiana was in the tournament. They were getting ready to take on Wright State and then Xavier. And I go down for the practice sessions, and one of the schools that's in is Delaware. They're taking on Louisville. And I see two guys from the University of Delaware, and I get talking to them. And I say, man, you guys go to Delaware. Like, I was fascinated by it. That's cool. And you're here for the NCAA tournament to watch your Blue Hens. Yeah, we are. The guy said, we drove through the night, man. We haven't even, we literally got done with class, got in the car, and drove here. And I said, where are you guys staying? What hotel are you staying at? We have no idea. Haven't even thought about it. And I said, well, why don't you stay at my parents' house? So I called my mom, and my dad got up, made them breakfast in the morning. They stayed. Delaware got blown out by Louisville. They made me an honorary Blue Hen. They got up in the morning, made their bed, left a little note, thank you, got in the car, drove, went home. I think I talked to them one time since then. But for that weekend, baby, they knew all about Hoosier hospitality. But what better way to show people Hoosier hospitality than to show them the true meaning of the fact, as I mentioned yesterday, the road ends here. for the Final Four. You see the sign at Lucas Oil Stadium. The road ends here. And what better way and what more hospitable way to show and prove that to all of the fans coming in, whether they're a fan of Connecticut, whether they're a fan of Illinois, whether they're a fan of New Mexico and Tulsa for the semifinals of the NIT, or Illinois State and Auburn semifinals of the NIT. Maybe they're a fan of Lander and Gannon that are playing in the Division II National Championship. Whoever it is that drives into Indy, we want them to know that we take it so seriously that when we say for college basketball, the road ends here, we're going to make sure they can't go more than 4 blocks before running into a chain link fence or an orange barrel.
Or everyone from Warsaw coming to support Emory University with Jason Zimmerman.
Gannon, by the way, was established as a 2-year cathedral college by the Diocese of Erie, Pennsylvania, right, in 1933?
Mm-hmm.
And now here they are. I don't know anything about Gannon other than that in order to go there, my understanding is you must be rich.
Well, apparently I found this out Sunday. Eddie White III almost went to Gannon University.
Really?
Yes, he did.
Wait a minute. You mean the Eddie White that we know is the second?
What?
You mean the Eddie White that we know is a second? There's a junior. There's another one that's
The Eddie White we know is Eddie White III.
Oh, so Eddie White 3's not as okay. There's 2 others. Good Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it is a big state, I guess. Lander was founded as a college for women by Samuel Lander as Williamstown Female College in Williamstown, South Carolina. Renamed Lander College in 1904, men were admitted starting in 1943. Became a university in 1992. These are fun facts you've come up with, Eddie.
I'm starting to become too much like you.
So all of those things coming here for the Final Four. And then, of course, we have the Colts owners meetings. Carly Ursay-Gordon did make a couple of interesting comments, which we'll play for you in just about 20 minutes, regarding Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard. We'll let you hear that in about 20 minutes. But I want to begin today, even though it's not beginning with, and I don't know. I don't know. I would hope that this is of interest to people. And I'm aware of the fact that perhaps it is more so to me and to those of us within this building because esoterically we live in a media bubble. And I think no matter what we do in life, we begin to think that things inside of our snow globe, that the flakes that fly around in it are bigger and more obvious to the eye than somebody who's just walking past the snow globe. So I hope what I'm about to talk about, people understand the significance of it. Because it does have implication in a lot of ways, in my opinion. Some of which are sport-related, but not really, but just Indianapolis-related. As we get set for a weekend where we put our city on display and show great pride, and I love Indianapolis. I love everything about Indianapolis. I love having grown up here, all of it. And there are certain slices of Indianapolis that are a huge part of my pride about this town. The Speedway being one, obviously. The Pacers being one, obviously. The Colts, I understand what they mean to town. I don't know that you would say that it has the same upbringing connection with me because they didn't move here until after a lot of my childhood was over. Certainly the formidable sports viewing years, but I understand their significance to Indianapolis. And one of the things that allowed me, people ask me a lot. They're like, yeah, the thing I like about your show is, you have such a knowledge of the history of Indianapolis. And the reason that is because I was afforded that information. But I've always been naturally curious. It's like the Ted Lasso darts scene. There's something about being curious. And I was always, as a kid, curious. I was curious about the layout of the city or the buildings of the city or the history or the backstory on things. And I heard from my parents many of the stories of the history of Indianapolis, everything from factual things to urban legend, everything from the Marjorie Jackson story to the House of Blue Lights, everything from the tragedy of the Burger Chef murders to Dancing Harry. I heard about all of it, and I was always curious. And so when I was in the 6th grade one day, as I've told many times, I knew I wanted to be a sportscaster. My dream was to be a sportscaster and to talk about sports in whatever market I would land. Indianapolis would have been great. And I called the guy that I watched every night, Ed Sorensen, at WRTV Channel 6, and said, I'd like to be a sportscaster. And he said, okay, then you can come down here. And actually, he hung up on me, and then I called back. And when I called back, he said, why don't you have your parents bring you down here? And I did. And my mom was a preschool teacher and had taught Jack Reinhardt's kids in school. So I knew Jack as well. And I went down, and Jack Reinhardt, Derek Thomas, and Ed Sorensen kind of took me under their wing. And when I was in the 6th grade, and I never left. I never left. I would go down anytime I had a chance. My parents would drop me off. I'd sit in the sports office and read media guides. I'd watch the way the news came together. I'd watch the way Clyde Lee and Deion Willis and Howard Caldwell and Bob McLean and Barbara Lewis and Tracy Horth and Barbara Boyd and Jack Reinhardt and Derek Thomas and Ben Morriston and Cy Jenkins. I'd watch the way all of them went about their craft and just observed. And I grew up there. And then when I was old enough to drive myself down, I had my own entry card into Channel 6. I didn't work there, but I was the always present gnat that I have always been so grateful that all of those people allowed to be there as opposed to punting me aside. And I think there were a lot of people that were happy to see that I was able to kind of grow my way through there. But one of the things that I would do, and there is a point to what I'm talking about here, one of the things that I would do on the regular from the time that I was 19 until I was probably 25, probably 3 days a week, I would be there in the building with Ed Sorensen until about 2 o'clock in the morning. And he was always in pursuit of the perfect broadcast. And we would watch his broadcast frame by frame. It taught me so much about preparation and pride and always trying to do things correctly. And also, it taught me a little bit about how you can get consumed by perfection and how that can be a danger, but at the same time, it can drive you. And my job was to record the sportscasts of Mark Patrick and of Chris Denari or Ray D'Alessio or Eric Ritchie on Fox 59 or Dave Calabro or Don Hine or Rich Nye on Channel 13. I had to record each one of them every night, and every night after their newscasts, I would sit with Ed inside the sports office, and we would watch nearly frame by frame every one of those sportscasts until 2:30 in the morning, easily. And in addition to that, because I was curious, I would go down into the library archives of WRTV6, and I would pull the news archive stories of all of the things that had happened in the history of this town. And I watched the way it was covered when the Marjorie Jackson murders took place. I watched the way it was covered when the Tony Kuritzis situation took place. I watched the way it was covered when the National Sports Festival was here, all of it. And I loved every moment of it, and I've never forgotten it. And it's for that reason that it was, emotional is the wrong word, but it was melancholy for me for certain to hear about, even though I knew it was happening, the purchase last night, becoming official, of WRTV by Circle City Broadcasting that owns Wish Television. Many of the names that I just mentioned have long gone on to other pastures within their career or retired, but there are a ton of people that worked at Channel 6, that yesterday, as I understand it, even though we knew that Circle City Broadcasting that owns Wish Television had purchased them. And the backstory there is simple. Wish Television, which has had different owners over the years, lost their CBS affiliation a while ago and became an affiliate of the CW. At that time, a number of different broadcast carriers, the cable carriers and providers that allow you to select what TV is available on your menu, dropped Wish Television because it was no longer carrying a major network. And so what we call the penetration, the accessibility to that television station in this market became less than what it once was. And so, and I understand it, Circle City Broadcasting purchased WRTV almost entirely, one would assume, to get the ABC affiliation so that Wish Television now had itself back as a major network carrier or had one within its stable. It may still do CW broadcasting on Wish and keep ABC and WRTV, as two different entities. But in terms of news departments and television operations, they already had all of that in existence. So they didn't need to double up on that. And so yesterday at 5 p.m., as I understand it, the employees of WRTV, not all of them, but the vast majority, sparing roughly a handful, were relieved of their employment duties. And WRTV, as we know it, yes, they did a newscast last night using personalities from Wish Television. How that looks moving forward remains to be seen. The building at 1330 North Meridian, which still has in the basement of it the command center for Scripps Television and their affiliates, I believe it's Bakersfield, Denver, San Diego, are operated out of the building at 1330 North Meridian. But the WRTV staff, my understanding is many of the operational people as well, all yesterday were relieved of their duties. I understand the nature of business. I understand the motivation from Wish Television. But at the same time, my true empathy goes out for the people who lost their job, because I've been through that thrice. And especially when no one really knew what exactly was going to happen or how it was going to happen. And there's no right way of doing that, I understand. But this all comes as, and this becomes a more complicated and intricate conversation. But you now have the FCC that at one time prohibited one company from owning a certain number of stations within a television market. That now has basically been diluted. And now you have the capability for corporate monopoly within media. Now, I understand, and I hear and I totally appreciate everybody listening to the radio that's saying, I'm listening to a sports radio show, and why I don't even, who cares about local news? Nobody watches local news anymore. We live in a world now where I listen to the radio podcasts and TikTok and Instagram, and that's where I get my information. I get it. I totally get it. But the reason why it was so important, it's just like sports. It's just like sports. The reason why sports is fun is because it allows us the outlet for diversity of what we root for. You might love Illinois because of the way they shoot a ton of threes. You may love Arizona because you like the bigs and their ability to score down low. You may love Connecticut because you like a coach that is somewhat maniacal on the sidelines, but his team spreads the floor and plays very disciplined. You may love Michigan because you like Dusty May and you love the way that their bigs can score inside and out and their ball movement is as good as anybody. You may love what Iowa did with Ben McCollum this season because of the way that they shared the ball and at times were able to slow down in their offense to work for the best shot, but then they could run when they could. The diversity of what your taste is what makes the NCAA tournament great. You can have a style that you root for that is totally different than the style that the guy at the water cooler roots for. And in media and in coverage in this country of the way things go, whether you're talking about sport, whether you're talking about politics, whether you're talking about the crime, whether you're talking about business, the diversity and versatility for people to be able to not just share information, but also to opine and commentary on it in a system of a freestyle check and balance is so incredibly important, that having that diversity of transparency is a critical part of the free society as opposed to homogenizing the thought into one monopoly of media. And that's not exactly what happened last night, but it cracks the door open, and that's why that was a significant story, regardless of whether you're somebody who is still in the habit of watching the 11 o'clock news or not. But for me personally, it was a significant story because it literally was a huge part of who I am, a huge part of who I am. And it was, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for all of the people now, especially that I'm older, I can understand and appreciate what I must have meant in terms of almost being in the way back in the day, but I was never, ever, ever once. From Grace Strahan to Joe Rodacap to all of the people, to Paul Chiodo, to Otis Jones, to Dave First, to Rob Powers, to Scott Hoke, all of them. All of them treated me like they wanted to help me along the way to help my career. And so I thought about all of them, knowing that the next wave of people that are enjoying that sort of reciprocal relationship within that building yesterday saw it come to an end at a surprise to them, which was disappointing because partnerships are important in business and in sport. And Carly Ursay-Gordon talked about the importance of partnerships when it comes to a coach and general manager and why exactly there have not been changes made within the Colts. She elaborated on that yesterday. We'll let you hear it next.
is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Sun's starting to peek out a little bit, Eddie.
Could get a little muggy outside.
You know, I'm not going to lie to you. I should spend the day, not necessarily, but there are so many things that I learned during my time at Channel 6. Like, for example, before we get into Carly Ursay-Gordon talking about Shane Steichen and as well Chris Ballard from the owners meeting. Brickyard 2004-ish.
Okay.
It was the imperfect storm. Some would say the perfect storm if you were in the business of the product that I'm about to mention.
Oh.
But my life changed forever.
Do I enjoy this product?
I don't know. You may not be aware of said product because you haven't maybe reached that old man stage in life just yet.
Uh-oh.
But Brickyard, I'm going to guess 2004. Give or take a year or two here or there.
Is it a product that Chad Ochocinco said he wants to use before games?
Give me the initials of said product.
Well, it's only one word, so that'd be no.
Is it a Chad Ochocinco admitted using a product before games?
Yes.
Okay, now is it like did he consume it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, this would not be that.
It was a pill.
Not be that.
He would take a half dose.
What, Midol?
No.
Okay. This was a legal pill? Or
Yeah, illegal, yeah.
Okay. Do you need to consult a doctor if you have too strong an effect from it?
Yes.
Okay. No, not that. It was one of those days, I remember it like yesterday, where it was about 75 to 80 degrees, but the humidity was somewhere ticking around 98%. Muggy, as they say. You could cut the air with a knife. And back in those days, every television station did, breakfast at the Brickyard or sunrise from the track or whatever, And we'd go on the air at 5 in the morning and go until 11 o'clock, sign off, and then the race takes place, and you're running around the race, and you're getting sound bites of drivers as they drop out of the race, and it's nonstop. And then you go and you immediately go for the post-race show, and then you're sitting around, you're cutting tape until 11, and just on and on and on. And I loved it.
We're 1 month away from May.
I know. I love everything about it. But I loved it, but it was always, and especially for the Brickyard back then, the Brickyard's a different animal too, because you just get like the fuel smell and the rubber coming off, and it's a different animal.
You better start sleeping, Jake.
Yeah, I know. Catch up now. Bank it.
Uh-huh.
So on that particular day, in some 2004, when my life changed forever, I noticed about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, somewhere around 3 or 4, had to kind of walk a little more like a cowboy, so to speak. Had to
the good old chafe.
Had to kind of do the walk and swivel, if you will.
Uh-huh.
The straightforward walk was a bit much, and seemed as though there was, shall we say, a little bit of tenderness in.
Heat rash.
Yep. And then I noticed. I noticed that day, my friend, that things changed for not just me, but many. Looked across the way and noticed that, yes, in fact.
We're not talking about Brandon Phillips, right? We're talking about BP?
BP?
Baby powder?
Oh, no, that's kid stuff. Nope, no, sir. So as I'm walking around and I'm looking and I'm seeing everybody, I'm noticing that everybody else is also doing the side-to-side shimmy walk. The side-to-side shimmy walk that, yes, in fact, says, I got what we list simply as some chafing going on.
And they're not playing the Cupid Shuffle? That's not what was going on?
No, it was brutal. And everybody had it, but nobody's wanting to mention it. And Dave First and I are like brothers. Dave First and I have been in the trenches forever together, and, literally, you name it, like after races, going and having a cigar together or going on the road or driving down together, and driving to Super Bowls and driving back in the middle of the night, you name it. So Dave and I had this understanding of trust amongst us. Finally, by like 11 o'clock that night, after we had finally put in the can, to use that term, pardon the pun in this situation, all of the tapes, for the after 11 o'clock broadcast of the replay and et cetera, we looked at each other and just said, quite frankly and quite simply, "Bud, I'm hurting. I don't know what's going on here. I have no idea what's going on, but some little gnome has climbed up along the interior of my thigh and has basically a Zippo lighter going on here, and this is brutal." So Dave and I went ahead and drove to a 24-hour pharmacy and just side shimmied our way up, and the pharmacist looked at us and immediately could tell what was going on. And before we even got to the counter, he discovered right there, or shall I say, allowed us to discover for the first time, the miracle of what is the Gold Bond powder. And I got news for you. That first splash of that powder, that medicated menthol burn, woo! Yep. Sounded like a member of the Lollipop Guild for a couple of seconds, but then it cools off. And before you know it, you're walking a straight line once again, and all is right with the world. And I wouldn't suggest that you ever use the foot powder like my buddy Scott McConnell did erroneously when visiting his in-laws after a round of golf and pulled the sink right out of the wall when he put that stuff on. But nonetheless, that Gold Bond powder is the nectar of the nether region gods. And that was the day my life was changed forever. And you don't find to this day, whether it be the mini marathon or whether it be a day where it simply is going to be a hot one on the golf course, you don't find me getting ready for the day without dumping a significant amount of that cool mentholated powder right there where it counts.
Are you going to be applying said powder in like a handful of weeks when we're meeting some of the listeners of the station?
Depends on how things are on April 30th at the golf outing at the Legends Golf Course down in Franklin. But I can tell you this, Franciscan Health is going to be there to answer your questions, not just about that, but more, because the Franciscan Health Foundation will benefit from the golf outing. April 30th, we would love to see all of you there, and I promise if I do have the Gold Bond going on, I'll wash my hands before we meet.
Go to 1075thefan.com for your tickets.
Carly Ursay-Gordon did talk about Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, and similar to what she had said at the end of the year, when it comes to the decision to retain both. And I think she said something that we can listen to, we can hear it, and we can say, that does make sense. But I also think it might have been a statement of convenience. And I took so long with the Gold Bond that we'll play you Carly next. Hey there, Jake Query for Chicago's Pizza. Chicago's Pizza right now, by the way, still time to get in for the lunch buffet. You're driving right now. I can see you. You're driving. You're thinking about lunch. You're looking around. You're looking at some place. You're going to think some fast food joint, think it's efficient. You're going to get something that probably was made at like 6 o'clock this morning. And in addition to that, afterwards, you're going to feel that, ugh. No, not the case with Chicago's Pizza. You're talking about breadsticks, fresh rolled, made right there fresh at Chicago's Pizza, and dough made fresh with the very best toppings, a salad bar with all the fixings and dressings. You get all of that and a soft drink for just $13 right now in Chicago's Pizza. And afterwards, you're not going to feel bad about eating it. You're probably going to crave more, which is why the $25 family meal deal tonight for dinner is also an excellent option. $25 for 2 medium, 1-topping pizzas and a fresh order of breadsticks. Chicago's Pizza has 19 locations around central Indiana, 26 statewide, and that lunch buffet runs until 1:30 every single day from 11 until 1:30. Chicago's Pizza. Find them online, chicagospizza.com.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Several years ago, the Colts made and it was Jim Irsay that made it. I think sometimes, and it's an odd phenomenon when you get to a point in your life where you can recall when your parents were the same age and you can look back on things they did, decisions they made. And in my case, I'll be honest, and I've been very fortunate in this. There are really no things that come to mind to me where I look at things my parents did and think, wow, I'm surprised they did that or they did that the wrong way. But I never worked for my parents per se. But for any aspect of it, it is very surreal when you reach that point where you say, like, gosh, in that memory, my parents were 10 years younger than I am now, those sorts of things. And in the case of Carly Ursay-Gordon, she has been around this franchise for, very closely observing it for quite some time. And there are areas where I think she may have looked at things and made a mental note of them. You see her a lot writing down notes, wearing the headsets, writing things down. And one of the more, I'll say infamous for lack of a better phrase, surreal is probably the better word, moments in covering the Indianapolis Colts. And there have been, for those that have been around, for Mike Chappell, for example, there have been a ton. Whether it was Bob Irsay coming into the locker room after a game and cutting a tight end on the spot, and then 2 days later, the Colts re-signing said tight end, and Bob Irsay coming in and saying, "Are you the new tight end? Wait till you hear what we did to the last guy." Or Bob Irsay allegedly calling plays down from the press box. There have been some bizarre things in the history of covering the Colts. Going and getting Ricky Turner to come in and run the wishbone for 4 games, But one of the more surreal press conferences happened after hours when all of the media were summoned back to 56th Street, and we were awaiting and anticipating the possibility that Chuck Pagano was probably going to be relieved of his duties or Ryan Grigson was going to be relieved of his duties. We didn't know which, maybe both. And Jim Irsay held the press conference of the famous attached at the hip. And he said, and these were two guys that, and let me preface by saying, in particular, since their departures with the franchise, I really like both guys. I like Ryan Grigson. I do. Do I think he was a great general manager? Maybe not. Do I think he was as bad as people throw him under the bus to be? I do not. Do I think, especially after hearing him out from his side of the story, that there is some truth in the middle? I do. Do I think there were a lot of things that many people will never know about that were stacked up against him? I do. And I like Chuck Pagano. Obviously, and we've seen now in particular, with some of the times he's been on this radio station and this show and whatever else, really likable guy, solid coach. I remember when they both were hired, I ran into both of them completely serendipitously at Ted's Montana Grill, and they could not have been nicer. And this was before the draft. They were just getting ready to draft Luck. We all knew they were taking Luck, obviously. But over the course of time, Luck wasn't always on their side. And I don't mean the player, I mean the euphemism. But there is no doubt that there were differing opinions, and I can't even remember. I've talked a lot about this with, at times, both people, really. And there were differing opinions on a couple of different things between Ryan Grigson and Chuck Pagano. And I think it may have been staff. I can't remember the exact specifics. But Jim Irsay held the famous press conference of they're attached at the hip. They're attached at the hip now, and lots of tears were shed, and we sat down and we talked our way through it. Jim Irsay was Henry Clay. He was the great compromiser. He sat down and he said, let's figure this out.
Kumbaya moment?
Yep. And bottom line, because at that time, you had staggering contracts, and Pagano, if I'm not mistaken, had a year left, and Grigson may have had 2, or I don't recall exactly, but they went into it then with this understanding of on the fly, we're going to make this work, because we sat down and we got emotional and tears flowed and we had a late night conversation, and this is going to work itself out. And it didn't. And it didn't, and then it got kind of ugly, and it was like, what do we do here? And then Grigson was the one that got let go, and now you have Ballard that comes in, and he inherits Pagano, and he goes through kind of an inherited year, and then obviously they make that move. You go with Josh McDaniels, that doesn't work, and then you get Frank Reich, and et cetera, et cetera. My point being long-winded here is that Carly Ursay-Gordon witnessed all of that. And I think probably one of the things that she noticed is you could have a general manager that's a 10 and a coach that's a 6. And it can work if they're step-by-step completing each other's sentences. You could have a coach that's a 10 and a general manager that's a 6. And it can work if step-by-step they complete each other's sentences. Or you could have a coach that's a 10 and a general manager that's a 10, and it's a complete and total disaster if one sees red and the other sees blue. So that symbiotic nature is so incredibly important that I think Carly Ursay-Gordon witnessed over the course of time that she's been really cognitively sitting there taking notes about it, the different variations of what happens with the combination of coach and general manager and the cohesiveness, or at times lack thereof, that exist. And it does appear as though, from the outside, I'm not inside, but from the outside, it does appear as though these are two guys working together that at times can complete each other's sentences. One was brought in by the other and chosen by the other, and one seemingly brought the other in because he was in step with the style in which that one works. And when Carly Ursay-Gordon talked about after last year, and we ran every possible scenario out there, do you want both replaced? Do you want one and the other stays? Do you want this one and that one stays? Whichever it might be. She talked about the decision to go ahead and go status quo, and perhaps precedent played into the thought process.
With Chris and Shane, obviously, I think one of the biggest pieces I always say is, we did a regression analysis a long time ago about, what is sort of the, I don't want to call it the kiss of death for where a general manager and a head coach don't succeed. And one of the things that we found is when you simultaneously hire them, and when you think about it, it makes total sense. Mm-hmm. So imagine hiring one person that has to do this, another person, and you just are like, I hope you get along. Versus I think that, Chris, with his tenure with us, I think we were able to go out when we found Shane and really make sure that we had someone that complemented Chris's style. And I think they have a great relationship. I love working with them.
Now, here's the thing, and that makes sense. She was talking to J.J. Stankovich there, by the way, from the Colts. It makes sense. But she also has to know, nor do I think it probably keeps her up at night, but she has to know that if we are back here a year from now having the same discussion, having the same breakdown, having the same analysis, then the natives are going to be restless. They are.
Is she saying that they are attached to the hip or they're not?
I think she kind of is, because what she's saying there is to have one, you have to have both.
I think it's interesting because when I listen to that, I hear her say that they are, but at the same time, I also hear the caveat of the general manager is not tied at the hip of the head coach, but the head coach might be tied to the hip of the general manager.
That's fair. No, that's fair. But yes, I think that's right, because basically what she is saying is, I think what she's saying there is whoever the general manager is, Eddie, the coach has to be one that the general manager probably is the one that hires, because if you get a coach, we saw it before. Chris Ballard inherited a coach,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't work.
1 year later, he was let go.
Right. It didn't work. So you just have to have, the coach wouldn't hire a general manager. The general manager hires the coach. So you have to have it that way.
I also think if you just look at what played out this offseason with Miami, for example, like they fired Chris Greer, their general manager, in the middle of the year. And once they got to the end of the year, the Miami Dolphins owner was like, yeah, I would like to keep Mike McDaniel. And then you start going through these interviews for potential GMs, and you're saying, all right, this can be your head coach. And then you come to find out, it's like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Like, I cannot just have somebody that goes over Mike McDaniels as his new boss and just try to patch that relationship together. They end up firing Mike McDaniel. They hire a new GM. That GM finds his head coach.
By the way, did you see speaking of coaches getting hired, did you see who got hired today by the New York Liberty?
I did. I didn't recognize him at all.
I would totally agree.
I'm like,
this guy,
who is that?
This guy looked like an AI version of a college athlete. Sculpted, handsome, kind of rugged, but yet probably could look like a former Abercrombie and Fitch. Is that place still around, Abercrombie and Fitch?
I think so.
There was a period there in the late 90s and early 2000s where they only hired pretty people. And they played really loud music as you walk past them all, and they sprayed cologne everywhere. But this guy looked like an Abercrombie and Fitch model and or manager, but he played basketball. He had tightly cropped hair. He was, square-jawed. He's a good-looking dude. And I would imagine that he was one of those players that everyone, if he was on your team, you loved him because he was a little bit cocky, and dudes liked him because they kind of admired or appreciated the fact that their girlfriend kind of had a crush on him, oddly enough, and women all loved him because he's a good-looking dude, and he was a good player, and he had some force about him. And then he got into coaching and now was hired by the New York Liberty, and I literally thought when I saw the shot that it looked like some sort of a mockumentary movie from the 70s starring Will Ferrell about the adult film industry. Just because he has like a 70s mustache and kind of long wavy hair. I'm not saying he's a bad-looking guy, but the photo itself, literally, I thought it was April Fool's. I had to double-check to make sure it's April Fool's Day. Had to double-check because I'm like, that's not him. He looks nothing. He literally looks like he's in witness protection program. Tell you who next. Hey there, Jake Query for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripes with just 100 calories, 2 grams of sugar, and no carbonation. It is so smooth. Surfside, lemonade and vodka, iced tea and vodka, or the half and half, and a wide variety of flavors. You could always do a variety pack if you are out shopping for them as well. And they have new products coming out for the summertime, which are going to be perfect for the lakeside or going out and enjoying the outdoors. No matter the occasion, Surfside is perfect for it. Surfside, look for the can with the sunset stripes. Please be 21 and please consume responsibly.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Will Sheehy. Will Sheehy is on the staff of the New York Liberty in the WNBA. He's been in coaching for a while, though. He was with Golden State before, I believe, right?
Yeah, he had time with Golden State. He was most recently with the Bakken Bears as an assistant coach.
The Bakken Bears?
Uh-huh. Bakken.
Where are the Bakken Bears?
They're I don't know.
What league is that?
Denmark?
It's in Denmark?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the top tier basketball league in Denmark, yeah.
I always get confused by this.
Based in Aarhus.
Oh, really? And when they're on the road, they're in your house, right?
Okay.
Just saying. Needless to say, I would guess that are the uniforms black?
No.
Really? I thought they'd be Bakken black.
They are navy blue and black.
Well, that seems like a missed marketing opportunity.
White. Sorry, navy, silver, white. Those are their colors.
Somebody dropped the ball on that, right? Denmark are Danes and Holland is Dutch, right? I always think Denmark's Dutch, but I think Denmark are Danes, right?
I think you're right.
Okay. The Division II, here, let's go over here some of the fun facts of the teams that are here for the college basketball championships, because we know of the Final Four. That goes without saying. But full slate of games and activities around Central Indiana for the NCAA. I remember a year ago at the Horizon League Championships at the Fairgrounds, they had all of the trophies on display, Division I, Division II, Division III, and it was because they were going to have all three divisions here in the same city for the Final Four, which was very cool, meaning this year, okay? We'll begin with the championship game for Division II, the 33-3 Gannon Golden Knights taking on the Lander Bearcats. Now, Eddie, we got to each pick a team on this, I guess, right? Is this game, do we know what day? Is this on Saturday at 1 o'clock?
Should be on that sheet that I gave you, Jay.
It just says at 1 p.m.
Yeah, Saturday.
Okay, need to write this down here.
All Division II, Division III, and NIT championship is Saturday.
Okay. So the championship game, 1 o'clock. The Gannon Golden Knights at 33-3 and the Lander Bearcats. Lander, a public university in Greenwood, South Carolina. And they've got, you ought to see the mall they have down there in Greenwood, South Carolina. The Park Mall.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Founded in 1872. It was founded as a college for women by Samuel Lander as Williamstown Female College in Williamstown, South Carolina. They renamed it to Lander College in 1904. And men were admitted in 1943. It became a university in 1992. 4,400 total students on campus. They upset the number one overall seed, Nova Southern, in the semifinal.
Southeastern.
And they've won, Nova Southeastern. And they've won 15 straight games. Their head coach was on Josh Schertz's staff at Lincoln Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
They played 2 seasons at Georgetown. The coach played 2 seasons at Georgetown, transferred to University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Okay, so that's everything we need to know about Lander, the Bearcats. Now, after this, Eddie, you're going to pick one. I'm going to pick one.
Okay.
We're gonna bet ourselves some ice cream.
Okay.
I'm serious.
Some ice cream? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
When's the last time you went out for a nice scoop of ice cream?
Whenever Dairy Queen was doing their free scoop or their free cone day.
Okay. Gannon University, not named for rich. Private university in Erie, Pennsylvania, established in 1933. Gannon was established as the 2-year cathedral college by the Diocese of Erie. And by the way, the only thing I know about that town is very strange. In 1933, the school became the first a 4-year men's school, Gannon College of the Arts and Sciences. It became co-ed in 1964, gained university status in 1979. So that's all we know about Gannon, where Eddie clearly got tired of doing the research after learning everything you could ever want to know about the Lander Bearcats.
Well, I was doing a little bit of research, and I'm like, okay, Gannon didn't really have an upset to get to the national championship game for Division II. They don't have any Indiana ties.
Okay, so of the two, you get to pick one here, and then if you pick the one that I want, then I'm going to override you. Would you like Gannon to root for, or are you rooting for Lander?
I consider myself a noble steed sometimes, Jake. So I will be I'll take the Gannon Golden Knights.
Okay, good. I'll take Lander because I like the fact that they're down in South Carolina. That's one of my favorite states.
Beautiful city. Beautiful state, yeah.
And I like the fact that the Bearcat are Bearcats real animals, or is that's not a fictional? That's a real animal. Right?
I think it's a real animal.
Bobcats are real. Bearcats are fake, right?
I thought they were the same thing.
Are you sure?
I don't know.
Can you look that up?
Okay.
Are Bobcats just Bearcats named Bob? Because we had a sound effect once, Mark Dykton had, of Bobcats, and I think it was a guy named Bob. Just out in his
Bearcats
backyard.
are real animals.
They are?
Mm-hmm.
Where do they live?
South and Southeast Asia.
What the hell are they doing in South Carolina?
No idea.
Okay. Or Cincinnati for that.
You know,
matter.
maybe the humidity sometimes in South Carolina, they feel like they're in Southeast Asia.
Do you think they use Gold Bond?
I would hope not.
Okay. So that's what we got for Division 2. Now to Division 3 in this fun exercise that we're doing here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The championship game of Division 3, the University of Mary Washington Eagles, they're 29-3, taking on Emory, who is 27-3. The University of Mary Washington, a public liberal arts university in Fredericksburg, Virginia, founded in 1908, established in 1908 at State Normal and Industrial School for Women. What is the normal part?
I don't know.
What is?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm dating a new gal. Where's she go to school? Well, she goes to school there at University of Mary Washington. Well, thank goodness, at least we know she's normal. Don't go to the other school. Those girls are all crazy. But the normal one, and she is industrial also. She gets after it. I know. That's what's great about it. A buddy of mine's dating one of the girls from the crazy school, but I've got the industrial one. She's a little more brass tacks. Okay, that's in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Eventually became known as Fredericksburg Teachers College. Eventually named Mary Washington College in 1938 after George Washington's mother. Didn't she also make mashed potatoes?
I don't know.
Okay. It was changed to University of Mary. Okay, 2004. I said that. 4,100 total students. They played Trine earlier this season. Trine's here in Indiana, right?
Yes.
Okay. 72.
The Rolling Thunder.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah. I think they're just called the Thunder, but
Have they ever had Garth Brooks sing the national anthem for them?
they should.
I know. All right, Emory University. I feel like there's an Emory University everywhere, right?
I feel that way too.
Emory University is a private research university in Atlanta, Georgia. That's been around. I mean, this is a pretty well-known school. Been around since 1836. 16,000 total students on campus. They've won 13 consecutive games. Their head coach is Jason Zimmerman. In his 16th season, he's the school's all-time winningest coach. He's a native of Warsaw, Indiana.
Uh-huh.
Spent 11 seasons as an assistant in Division I, was at Evansville in 03-04 under Steve Murfeld, remember, who's the little guy that got lifted off the floor after they beat Iowa State when he was at Hampton. Jimmy Carter is a native of Emory, an alum of Emory. Which school of these two are you rooting for?
I figured you would want University of Mary Washington because of the aspect of George Washington's mother.
I kind of prefer the crazy women. The normal women, not as exciting, but I'll go with it if you need me to, right?
So I'll take Emory.
So in our ice cream wager here.
Now, what if we split? Do we have to buy each other banana splits?
We both get banana splits,
yeah.
Yes. So I've got Mary Washington, okay, and the Mary Washington Eagles. Now these are men's games, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't want just a bunch of normal women out there running an offense. Okay, then, and then in the other game, I've got Lander, right? I'm all in on Lander.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to confess a rooting interest in the two semifinals games at the Division I level?
I will confess a rooting interest.
You'll go with, who are you rooting for between Illinois and Connecticut?
I might be in the minority here. Connecticut.
Okay. That's who I picked in my bracket. You remember at the beginning of the year. Did I not say on this show?
The beginning of the year, that's pretty impressive.
The beginning of the tournament. Did I not say at the beginning of the tournament Connecticut was going to win the whole thing?
Yeah. I didn't doubt you.
Which, if they don't win, you'll never hear me mention again. Okay. And then Michigan, Arizona.
Give me the Wildcats. Bear down.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to go against Dusty May.
It is, but
it is Michigan.
I'm in a huge bracket pool, Jake, of like 150 to 200 people.
Are you still in that survivor pool deal?
Yes.
Are you really?
Yes. but Duke losing kind of hurt me because
Why?
the only team I have left now is Arizona. So if I get Arizona correct against Michigan, I don't have a team in the championship game. The plan was going to take Duke in the Final Four, Arizona in the championship game.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Upsetting.
Speaking of upsetting, I want to get back into something I talked about just about an hour ago.
I do have a quick follow-up on the whole NCAA thing real quick, Jake.
Okay.
Somebody texted this earlier on the text line. Just wanted to get to it now since we're talking about all the events that are going on in terms of games. Do you think this could be a precursor to the NCAA trying to have the women's Final Four and the men's Final Four in the same city? Is it feasible or logistical that
You know what?
Indianapolis could host both at the same time?
We can ask Julie Roash that. Honestly, that's a great question. She's going to join us at 2 o'clock, right?
Yes.
She's kind of helped put this together, even though she's with Pacer Sports Entertainment now. Be perfect to ask her that. That's a good question. I don't know. It seems like that would be logistically really hard, but
I mean,
with all these teams here,
I was about to say, think about it. You got NIT, Division II, Division III all here this weekend.
now the NIT, by the way, tomorrow night, New Mexico and Tulsa at 7 o'clock at Hinkle, and then Illinois State and Auburn at 9:30. I may have to go to the New Mexico game just because when I went to the pit with Byron and we did a tour of the pit, the guy took us all the way through and then took us in and let us pick out merchandise that they were like redoing their colors or something. And so
Now,
gave us
did
a
they
bunch
let
of
you
extra
try to
stuff.
do the roll ball up the ramp thing? Is that at New Mexico or is that UNLV? I can't remember. Where is that? I can't remember.
That doesn't sound like New Mexico. I reenacted the Derek Wittenberg shot, but I hit it at the pit.
Yeah, because I forget what arena it is. I know it's out there on the West Coast. That like the ramp is so high up, it's like people try to roll a ball up it and you can't get it all the way up to the top. It's like
that
incredibly
would make
hard.
sense at the pit because of the way it's. But that might be Thomas and Mack Center in UNLV. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to get to it again because I do think it's. And I understand, and I would ask that you lend me your ear to understand the significance of what it is that I'm about to speak. And I mentioned it earlier on the show. On a personal level, which I will also address, this is meaningful, but I do think that it impacts our community. And I care a great deal about our community and the history of this town. And to paraphrase what I mentioned earlier or summarize it, growing up here, both of my parents are from Indianapolis, and ice cream, we just mentioned. My childhood was spent, a very idyllic childhood, but much of it was spent on Sunday nights getting Linder's double dip for a dime time and driving downtown with my sisters in the car and my parents driving and going for a Sunday drive to get ice cream. We loved it. We did it a lot. And I watched this town grow up from the back seat of a Chevy Malibu, in the back seat of a Ford Mustang, by listening to my parents narrate and point out the different things that, I don't know if anybody remembers, there used to be just north of Fall Creek on Washington Boulevard, as you bent around, there was a guy that lived in a house that collected hearses and cannons. Anybody remember that? The hearse house? Just had like broken down hearses in the front yard. It creeped me out like no tomorrow. And he had a cannon just sitting in the front yard. Very odd. But that was, a landmark in Indy. And hearing the stories of the House of Blue Lights and hearing the stories or having my parents point out to me and telling me about like Tony Kuritzis or the building of Market Square Arena before that, and then seeing the building of the Hoosier Dome and the AUL building, now the One America Tower, et cetera. And I loved it. I was consumed by it probably almost to an abnormal level. But I don't have many skills in life, and I don't have many attributes of intellect. But one thing I've always had is curiosity. I've always been curious. And because of curiosity and drive, frankly, I knew at a very young age that I wanted to be a sportscaster. And in that capacity, my mom knew Jack Reinhart because she taught his kids in school. And I completely admired Derek Thomas, because I loved the way that he would say, Derek Thomas for the news, Channel 6. I loved it. And I would watch the news even at a very young age. I would watch the news every night. And eventually I called Ed Sorensen to ask about being a sportscaster, and that facilitated for me to come down in the 6th grade and be able to follow and job shadow him for a day, which became a week, which became a month. And by the time I was in high school, I had my own entry card to Channel 6, and literally every time that I had a free evening or after everybody else went home on a Friday or Saturday night, I would go down to Channel 6. And my parents allowed it because they knew that's what I was doing. And they trusted that those people, were looking after me, I guess you'd say, where I just sat and learned everything about a newscast. I would sit in the sports office, and Scott Hoke was as kind to me as could be. And I would sit there, and Ed Sorensen was like a father figure to me. And I would observe and read media guides. And then eventually I would tear scripts, or I would help edit something, or I would have to run something down. And everyone in that building, everyone, from Kurt Swadener to Jennifer Shirley to Ben Morrison, Cy Jenkins, Linda Lupier, Galen Bartnick, Tracy Horth, Clyde Lee, Dion Willis, Howard Caldwell, Jack Reinhart, Derek Thomas, Barbara Boyd, everyone, Bob McLean, David James, everyone was beyond kind to me. The behind-the-scenes folks, Joe Rodecap, his now wife, Grace Strahan, who was an anchor. Everyone treated me like I belonged there, even though I wasn't even getting paid. I was just there observing. And then eventually it worked into the point where I worked there. And in my job working there at the very bottom level, tearing tapes or tearing scripts, mixing coffee, delivering tapes, whatever needed to be done. At the end of each newscast when I was there, on the nights that I was there, I would sit in the sports office with Ed Sorensen, and we would watch all of the sportscasts back in replay, frame by frame, the pursuit of the perfect sportscast. And it was no different than in sport now when I see coaches that are in pursuit of the perfect game, and they watch tape, and they point out things that the average person doesn't notice. They say, well, in the second half we missed a backdoor screen, or they ran a safety with a cover over the top, and we didn't see it on that. We should have audibled out of that. And that comes with practice and pursuit of perfection. I'm not saying that I necessarily had it, but I witnessed it in Ed, and I learned so much from it. But I had the curiosity of those rides and the ice cream trips as a kid. And I wanted to learn more about the Burger Chef murders, or about Marjorie Jackson, or about the House of Blue Lights, or about the tragedy on the ice capades at the Coliseum, or the rise of Bill Hudnut, or the National Sports Festival, or the getting the Colts to come to Indianapolis, or the telethon to save the Pacers. And I would sit, and I know still to this day where every inch of tape is in that building at Channel 6. I could take you right now. You could say to me a historic event in this town, and I could walk you right in right now to 1330 North Meridian, walk down the ramp into the basement, and I can find for you every archive of every significant moment exactly where it is on tape, because I watched all of it over the course of probably 20 years, because I was always curious. And eventually, after working there in 2 different professional, legitimate capacities, I left to transition into radio in WIBC in 2007. And it was really hard for me, because that was a family to me, because it was people who always looked out for me. And it was people who never once let me feel like I was in the way, even though now that I'm old enough to understand, I know that I was. And every one of them went out of their way to help me out anytime that I needed it. Rob Kimmons and Paul Chiodo and Otis Jones and Dave Franklin and Glenn Welling and Tom Trial and Tom Sisler, all of them, whatever they could do to help me. Dennis Goins. I remember one time I was driving back from covering a game at Purdue with Dennis Goins, the photographer at Channel 6, and I broke out and started crying because I'd broken up with a girlfriend like 3 days earlier, and it had all hit me. And I was in this depression because I had this pursuit, but I wasn't getting anywhere. And Dennis Goins pulled his car over on I-65 and said, you know what? We're just going to sit here and talk. And I don't care if we get the tape back late. This is more important. And that's what happens when you have workplaces that are family. And even when all of those people that I mentioned have now, most of them have moved on to different pastures and different retirements or whatever it might be, you never lose the core at its base of people that are family and an environment that's family. And yesterday, the sale went through with WRTV being acquired by Circle City Broadcasting, which owns Wish Television. And Wish Television was long time the CBS affiliate in town. Wish Television was purchased by Circle City Broadcasting, but had lost its affiliation to CBS and became a CW affiliate. And as a result of that, many of the cable providers dropped their relationship with Wish Television because the CW was not as beneficial to those providers as was CBS. And so Circle City Broadcasting, I think for a long time, has been seeking to get back into the affiliate game, which is why they took advantage of the opportunity to purchase WRTV, not because they wanted the assets from a personnel standpoint of WRTV, but because they wanted the ABC affiliation. And I understand it. I do. I totally understand it. Business is business. I get it. So I understand why Circle City Broadcasting made that move and made that acquisition. It doesn't mean it doesn't make me sad. And it doesn't mean, in the long-winded point here, that it doesn't impact all of you. All of you in Indianapolis, it does impact. Not because of ill will from the standpoint of Circle City Broadcasting. I understand it. Good for them. It's a capitalistic society, and they had the ability to expand their footprint by purchasing the building and everything that goes with it. I get it. But the vast majority of those people working at WRTV yesterday were relieved of their duties. And one would assume that the newscast at Wish Television, which does a good job and has very fine people, one would assume that that newscast now simply slides over and becomes the newscast of WRTV because you have a greater ability for that to be seen by the Indianapolis market because it's an ABC affiliate that is broadcasted on a larger scale of providers, cable providers. So all of you listening to my voice you get Channel 6. Some of you may not. The majority of you may not on your cable opportunity get Wish Television. So I understand that aspect of it. But where it is concerning is it relates to sport. The thing that is great about sports is that we love the conversation, we love the competition, we love the dynamic, we love the versatility and the diversity of some may be a fan of defensive football. Some might be a fan of wide open passing style teams. Some might like a run and gun team in college basketball. Others may like the purity of setting screens and running a motion offense. That's what makes the sports world go round. And that's why we are able to sit at the water cooler and have conversations of, on a discourse of disagreement and good-natured ribbing, but at the bottom line, we all have the same spirit of a fan of sport. And the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, from a legal standpoint in this country, long had policy that one company could not have monopoly ownership of a number of different broadcast entities because they wanted to, again, promote the aspect of diversity of delivery and to some extent diversity of thought. Not in news delivery, but in the editorial or the reaction of news. And in today's world, unfortunately, that's become blurred where people confuse the editorial commentary of a station as a bias that influences the delivery of the actual news itself. They should be two different pages of the newspaper, but it's become blurred now. But what you have now is essentially two companies that own all of the broadcast television programs and companies here in central Indiana. And I understand it. And I get the fact that Father Time is undefeated and evolution is undefeated and business is business. I understand all of that. But at the same time, it also can lend itself now or creak the door open to the homogenization of thought. and of delivery. And that is something that I think everybody should look at and say, I simply think that we live in a society that should have multiple options or multiple ingestion. And I totally understand in a world now of podcasts, radio, Instagram, TikTok, there are so many places for people to ingest their news that it would be very fair while you're listening to my voice to simply say, dude, nobody watches the 11 o'clock news anymore anyway. I understand that. I do understand that. And change is hard. But to me, what is the most hard and what's the most difficult is the fact that a place, selfishly and personally speaking, where I grew up with a number of people that helped me grow, that provided for me friendships, mentorship, guidance, support, and never once made me feel in the way. It makes me sad to know that the place where that all happened now is gone in the blink of an eye. Professionally speaking, it makes me more sad to know of the number of people that are now going through what I thrice have been through, and that is trying to figure out what is next when you are the victim of a business acquisition and downsize. And that doesn't mean that I hold ill will on the process of businesses doing that. It is an unfortunate aspect of it. But it does potentially as well have implication on the way the media landscape in the city of Indianapolis changes moving forward. And I'm curious to see where that goes. I have concern about it because it is my level of curiosity that led me to have such a love for all of it. And I'm the first to admit that sometimes change is hard. Eddie, we have tickets to give away for FanFest, correct?
We do have tickets to give away for the Final Four FanFest.
I've come up with a fun game we're going to do for this.
Oh, yeah?
We are going to take a caller. We're going to play for them. We're going to go back on the way back. So you need to be a regular listener of this show. Ain't no faking it on this. If you're a regular listener of this show and you feel up to speed, we're going to play for you. You're going to call in since there are tickets for the Final Four FanFest. And we're going to play for you 4 sounders from back when we did the numbers game, and we have the sounders that represent different universities. We're going to play for you a sounder, and you need to get 3 of 4 correct. And if you do, you win the tickets. So Eddie will have his sounders all up and ready to go. And you, in this, again, it's going to be helpful if you're a regular listener to the program. You can figure out what some of the sounders are, perhaps. Just give me an example, Eddie, as an example. If I'm caller Bill, and Bill calls in and he's like, all right, I need it right now, so play me one of the sounders, and I'm going to guess what school it represents in the field of 68 in the NCAA tournament from the Great Query and Company numbers game. Give me one of the sounders.
Let's go, Gators!
You know what? I would guess that that's got to be Florida. Bingo. That's how we do it. All you got to do is get 3 or 4 and you're on your way to the FanFest, but you got to call in first. 239-1070 is the telephone number.
Barry and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Now, Eddie, I misspoke here. I was so excited about all of these games coming to Indianapolis that I advanced them up a day. They're Sunday, not Saturday, right?
I appreciate you taking the fall on the sword for that, because on the document that I gave you, Jake, I wrote Saturday, April 5th. Saturday would be April 4th, and Sunday would be April 5th.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but just so you know, you bring your playbook. Coach wants to see you after the show.
Okay. Okay.
No big deal. So Sunday, which is Easter Sunday, the NIT.
Sunday.
All of the finals are on Sunday, right?
Yep, Division 2, 3, and the NIT, yes.
Now,
all
do we
at
have,
Cambridge.
Speaking of the Final Four Fan Fest, we have a quartet of tickets to give away. That would be 4 of them, right?
Yes.
Fan Fest is awesome. It is a celebration of the Final Four, essentially. That is downtown, and we have tickets to give away. Do we have a caller who is lined up for this fabulous game that we're going to do?
You know, Jake, we actually have a full group of callers. We have the lines are full, yes.
Okay.
We'll start with Dan.
Now, do we know this is Dan, or is this going to be like the Saturday, Sunday thing where you screwed up?
No, I know this is Dan.
Okay. Dan, how are you?
I'm great. This is Dan.
Dan, have you called the program before?
Never have. Always dreamed of being part of the company, though.
That's fine. Okay. Dan, so Dan, are you a working fella?
I am.
What line of work are you in, Dan?
Well, technically, I am an auto worker, actually.
Oh, really? By auto worker, meaning like you work at like on the lines, or you sell cars, or like what area of the automotive industry are you working?
Actually, I'm at an auto manufacturing plant on the production line.
Okay, well, that's cool. Here's the thing, Dan. I'm going to give you a title if you don't mind. I'm going to name you as the director of production for the company. Is that cool?
That sounds great.
Because I don't know if you notice or not, especially based on today's show, productivity, not a real strong suit of this program, right?
Well, hey, it is for entertainment, not for production.
Well, and again, Dan, I don't know if you know this or not. Entertainment, not a strong suit of this company, just so you know. But we do the best we can.
You sell yourself short.
Oh, thanks. All right, Dan, are you familiar with the way that we did the numbers game?
I am.
Okay. So we have sounders that Eddie worked tirelessly on.
Dan, did you get through to participate in the numbers game?
No, I did not participate in the numbers game.
Okay. Dan, we have sounders that we're going to do. We will play you the sounder, and I want you to tell me which of the field of 68 you believe that it belongs to, okay?
Okay.
Eddie, go ahead with sounder number 1.
Make it 4 Boilermakers.
Whatever you want, sir. I'll have the waitress bring it over immediately.
Now, Dan, if you don't get this, I got news for you. You're not just fired from this company. You might be in question at the automotive one as well. What's your guess?
Well, since I'm a Purdue fan, it has to be Purdue.
That is correct. You're 1 for 1. You're allowed 1 slip up in this incredibly enticing game that we made up on the fly. Okay, the second sounder. Here we go, Eddie.
High tide, guys! High tide! High tide! High tide! High tide!
Okay, Dan, do you know what school that would be?
That would be the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Dan is 2 for 2. All right, Dan, no pressure here. You get 1 of the next 2 to get it right. Here we go, Eddie. Play the next one.
It's a finger-licking Kentucky Fried Chicken, a finger-licking good day.
Okay, Dan?
Well, there's two schools going through my mind. I'm going to say Kentucky, even though I believe Colonel Sanders was from Louisville, but I'm going Kentucky.
You had a 50-50 there. I believe, Eddie, Louisville would have been the correct answer, correct?
Yes, the Yum Center.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Dan, you got to finish strong here. No pressure, okay? Do you feel a little bit of pressure here?
Not at all.
His palms aren't sweaty.
That's right.
His knees aren't weak.
All right, Dan, here we go. Here's the last sounder. Here you go.
Huck Tuin.
Okay. Eddie, 1 more time if you could.
Huck Tuin.
Okay. Dan, do you know what that one is?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, geez.
One more time, Eddie. Go with the first syllable here, notably. Pay very close attention to the first syllable. Here we go.
Hawk Tuin.
I'm going to go with
Hawk.
Miami Redhawks.
Oh, Dan. Now, here's the thing, Eddie. Do we have just one set to give away? Is that right?
Yeah, just one set.
Dan is such a good sport here.
We can't reveal the answer on that one.
Do we give to Dan for playing along, or do we stick? Dan, I will allow you. You sound like a nice fella, right? You sound like a good guy. Do you think that you have earned said set here, or are you an honest enough guy that you're like, hey, you laid out the rules and I had to go 3 for 4 and I only went 2 for 4? Which way are you leaning on it, Dan, as the new director of productivity of this company?
Well, I've spent 38 years as a basketball official, so things have to be done by the rules, and by the rules, I did not win.
Look, Dan, you were an official at what level, by the way?
Mostly high school varsity.
Okay, is fair statement, okay? Fact or fiction? Many people believe that high school coaches are actually the biggest nuisance to officials, but in reality, in 2026, it's overbearing and totally unrealistic parents that are actually the bigger pain.
I would have to say, I would have to say the latter. I would venture to say fans, not necessarily. I mean,
okay, fair.
A lot of parents, yes.
Fair enough. Listen, Dan, my eyes have been completely opened in the last, I don't know, couple of years, as to the intricacies of the rules that go into officiating, and getting to know that aspect of it. You will never again hear me complain about an instantaneous call in officiating. It is unbelievable, the nuance of the things that you guys need to know and gals need to know in that moment, and the precision with which you're able to make and know those rules is truly remarkable. And officials are the reason that, I'm doing this job because I got to do high school broadcasting as a young kid, and that was facilitated by people that were willing to be there on Tuesday nights and Friday nights and Saturday nights to make high school athletics possible. So you get a huge, huge tip of the cap for that, and a huge thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate you putting the effort into learning about the rules, and now you can. I encourage anyone to go on and just look up officiating rules training videos. You can watch them and see what actually goes into the preparation and what the rules actually are.
Dan, I appreciate you participating in our game today and the honesty, the scruples with which you work. You are a proud member. Now, we're proud to have you as a member of this company.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate you bringing me on. I won't even ask for a signing bonus.
Okay. We don't offer those, Dan. We don't offer those, but we do have a lovely benefits package. Okay, Eddie, are we going to go ahead and do it on the other side?
Do you want to hammer it down now, or do you want to do it on the other side? It's a good question.
That's what I said. Do we want to do it on the other side before Julie Roash?
You're the host.
We'll do it next, and then Julie Roash, top of the hour. Hey there, Jake Query for Game Day Men's Health, Avon, Fishers, Carmel, Greenwood, Carmel location where I went for Game Day Men's Health and absolutely love it. Scott and his crew are just the absolute best. I'm talking about a relaxed and professional atmosphere where you can learn more about men's testosterone replacement therapy, peptide therapies, weight loss injection. Guys, it's time to get back in the game. Start feeling that energy again. Start avoiding that midday slouch and fatigue that can kick in. Start getting into your workouts without worrying about the pain that takes place afterwards. Peptide therapies can help out with that. Also help without belly fat, get rid of that as well. Game Day Men's Health. One of the things I love about it when I went in is I said, look, here are my aspects in terms of my own personal health journey. And they said, absolutely. talk to your own doctor, and we can work with them to make sure that we're doing what's best for you. It is that individualized game plan that separates Game Day Men's Health from the rest, and efficient, in and out in an hour. Game Day Men's Health. Find them online at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I'll never forget when this song was at its apex, being in Chicago and watching my dad walk down Michigan Avenue like an Egyptian. And you would think that people would snicker at it, but like people were joining in because this was a cultural phenomenon when it came out. Do we have another caller lined up for this fabulous award-winning program?
We do indeed, yeah. We've got Aaron.
Aaron. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
I'm doing well, brother. How about you, sir?
Oh, not bad. Aaron, have you called the show before?
Yes, I have, man. I actually won the TBT tickets, man, and I never got those tickets, actually. They actually ended up sending them on the day of, and they ended up being in Louisville, and that's when Butler and IU was in it, Yogi, all those guys, and I never even got to make it, man.
Now, just so you know, now hold on. Now, Aaron, I appreciate that, but here's the thing. I do apologize for that as well. But just so you know, since those days, we're under new management and ownership here at the company.
No, you're fine, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, the tickets did come. It was the day of. But then once I found out and I got them, it was about a few hours before, and it was in Louisville, man. I just couldn't, make that.
That seems logistically challenging.
Yeah, it is. It is. And with me being in logistics, I'm actually a truck driver, man. So,
are you really? Are you in the rig right now by chance?
No, sir. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting in Midas, man, waiting to get my car fixed.
Okay, all right. Well, make sure the brakes are working. All right, so you know how this works, right? Are you familiar with the numbers game by chance, Aaron?
I was listening. Yeah, I am familiar with it. Yes,
okay,
sir.
So you see here how we do it. We're going to play you a sounder. You got to tell us which of the 68 teams in the NCAA tournament it belongs to, okay?
My best, bro.
All right, no pressure here. All right, Eddie, this is sounder number one for you, Aaron. All right, Aaron.
That was the Jayhawks. That's Kansas.
Okay, that is correct. All right. By the way, do they have coffee and stuff there in the waiting room where you are right now?
Absolutely not, man. I actually had to walk, man, and go down to Domino's, and actually their computer wasn't working, so I couldn't get a pizza.
You should have gone to Chicago's Pizza, Aaron. Chicago's has 19 Central Indiana locations.
Time is good.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's not in walking distance, man.
Fair enough. All right, fair enough. All right, walking distance, really, everything's within walking distance if you're Forrest Gump, just so you know. Okay, Eddie, who's next here? Here we go, Aaron. Tough one. All right, sounds like the NBA draft sounder followed by the song Mrs. Robinson. What's that?
I was going to say that. It sounded like the NBA draft.
Mm-hmm. So what school would you guess that relates to, Aaron? Keep in mind, Mrs. Robinson known as a cougar, just so you know.
Okay. Cougar? I know. I can see you eyes of cougar. That's going to be my guess, man.
How about this, Aaron? Brigham ain't old, but rather he's what?
Young.
Eddie, are we counting that? All right, BYU. Okay.
We
All right.
got him there.
We got 2 left here, Aaron. Thanks for working with us
right.
here. That was, trust me, that was hardly within walking distance, but we got there, Aaron, right? All right, here's our third one, Aaron.
It's cold. A big lump in nuts. It has the juice.
You mind if I ask if we play that one more time, man? I didn't
One
catch
more
that.
time. I'm with that. Here we go. One more time.
It's cold. A big lump in nuts. It has the juice.
The first 2 words are "it's corn." If you were trying to understand what is being said there.
Corn. Okay, there we go. Aaron,
It's
would you like to
corn.
guess, Aaron?
Cornhuskers.
What's that?
Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Okay. Now, Aaron has actually, I believe that secures it, right? He's got to go 3 or
okay.
4.
Okay.
We got 1 left, Aaron. 1 left for you to see if you can clean sweep this one. Here we go. Number 4.
Huck Tunes.
Okay. Aaron.
What, is the first word a bad word? Am I getting that?
No.
It's not like the F-bomb, man. I wasn't sure, man.
No. Listen, I mean, we are a family-friendly program, although there is certainly some
absolutely.
insinuation here. Eddie, one more time if you could.
Huck. Huck.
I believe she's saying Hawk Tua.
Huck Tunes.
Shit, I see. Yeah, that's what I thought it was actually saying F to us. So I was like, what school hates Tua? You know?
Okay. No.
I thought about Miami because he left Miami just recently, so I thought maybe you know what I mean? I know that's the Dolphins, but I was like, maybe the Hurricanes hate him, maybe.
No, that is the Iowa Hawkeyes, Aaron, the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, here's the thing, Aaron. Is the car or the rig, either one, going to be fixed by Saturday? That's the big concern here.
I'm sorry, it'll be done here shortly, man. It was actually finished, man. They were nice enough to do some extra work for me. If I actually had my tire sensors replaced.
You ever showered at a truck stop, Aaron?
Absolutely, I love it, man. I recommend Loves. Recommend Loves.
Yeah, when I go in there just to get myself some gummy worms and Diet Mountain Dew, and I hear him say like, shower 64, your shower's ready, and I always wonder who it is. Do you go with flip-flops or slides in there, or are you going just barefoot raw dogging it?
Oh, brother, absolutely, man. It's just like being locked up, man. You got to go in there for 7 years. You don't want to step in anybody's shoes. You know what I mean?
All right, well, fair enough, Aaron. Aaron, listen, drive safely once everything's good on the car. I appreciate you listening to the program.
God bless you, brother. Thank you, man.
We'll get your information and get you on about your way. That's Aaron. And listen, good sport before that from, was it Dave or Dan?
Dan.
From Dan, yeah. Sorry, Dan. See, Eddie, here's the thing. I'm fairly convinced whenever we do this. Yesterday, I had a gentleman call me, and it was really a fun conversation because he's in a play and he's playing, and it really sounds like an interesting play about a gentleman that is a radio host and the struggles the radio host has of like on-air persona versus who he is in real life. And I said to him, man, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I did play a character earlier in my career, and it just wasn't me. And I think I speak for all of our colleagues here as well, but I know, I just go on the air and I'm me. Like, I don't try to, and John, I know, is the same way. And certainly Kevin, we, and Jeff and James, I mean, you're not playing a character or stepping into a character on this show. And I told him the one thing that you get insecure about is you do feel self-conscious of the fact that most of the time I'm talking, I just assume that no one is hearing it. And so, and it is weird because you're basically just talking into a room. There's no, I'm public speaking, I get very nervous. And in this, I don't necessarily, because I see you on the other side of that window here, and that's it. And so I just assume that honestly, I'm being totally serious when I say this. I'm like, I'm more often than not, I leave and I don't think anybody heard that today.
I know, right?
And so and I think that we should, I should do a better job of incorporating those that do listen, because it's always fun. People are fun. And people are funny. I mean, Aaron's a funny dude, right? And
everyone's got a little personality to them in some way, shape, or form.
Totally. And I get it. I mean, I'm sure hearing me drone for the same, drivel for 3 hours is tough,
But it's also entertaining and educational. Like, for example.
Well, we educate and entertain. I don't know the entertainment. That's if you think about this show in reality, okay?
Like, how would you know that this?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's the state fish of Hawaii. Yeah. That's the Huma Huma Nuku Nuku Apuaha.
Yeah, how would you know the Huma Huma Nuku Nuku
When are you going to Hawaii?
May 11th.
How excited are you to walk up to people and ask them if they're aware of the Huma Huma Nuku Nuku Apuaha?
I don't know how many howlies I will be doing that to.
Listen, you walk up to anybody in Hawaii and you just walk up and say, "Excuse me, did you know that I'm from the mainland and I know that the Huma Huma Nuku Nuku Apuaha is the state fish of Hawaii? And I got news for you. It's like giving the secret handshake to every fraternity known to man." When you tell people that you know that the Huma Huma Nuku Nuku Apuaha is the state fish of Hawaii and they are Hawaiian, they love it. They go crazy for it. They absolutely go crazy for it. It's the ultimate compliment to a Hawaiian. And so I think because we do try to educate, but the entertain is very questionable. I think like if we were, for example, like at a gas station. Gas is their primary, they're selling, you go to Shell, you're going there for gas. Now, you might go in and get yourself a soft drink.
Or a snack.
Or a snack. The snack soft drink of this show,
combos.
That's the entertainment. We have a little bit of that, and some might find it, but more so I think it's the education aspect of it. We try to educate folks. Like, for example, educating everything that goes into putting on the championship levels for Division I, Division II, Division III, and the NIT, and how everything goes about putting on all of that. And Julie Roash, who was formerly the commissioner for the Horizon League, is now with Pacer Sports and Entertainment, but has worked in the involvement of all of that, and I think can give really good perspective as to everything that goes into it. And we'll have that conversation next.
is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You go with the disco theme here, Eddie?
Do you know this song?
You know, for a split second, I thought it was Macho Man. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. I walk down the street, I can hear Macho Man just off in the distance, typically. How do I know this song?
I don't know. It's a popular social media sound. That's the song, Rasputin.
There we go. It has a little bit of a Studio 54 feeling to it. I'm not going to lie to you. Makes me slightly uncomfortable if we really want to know the truth.
It's from 1978.
Well, I mean, everything about 1978. Listen, I'll put on my tough skins and get in the back of my mom's wood-paneled station wagon. Let's just roll around and get some linders.
Actually, 98. Sony is the distributor that they were formed in 78. There you go.
Sounds like 1978. Joining us now, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so based on that intro, on the guest line, she is formerly the commissioner of the Horizon League and is now an executive vice president for the Pacers. Julie Roash joining us with, of course, Pacer Sports and Entertainment being a big part of Final Four weekend and all of the championship games that are taking place. Julie, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
I am well. It's great. March Madness is here. Actually, April Madness, right?
It is April Madness.
It's a big week.
And have you been hit by any April Fool stuff today?
You know what? I was just thinking I haven't. Am I actually on air, or is that April Fool?
That's right. Listen, I don't know if you know this or not. This entire program is an April Fool. You know what I mean? I'm waiting for the day when I come in and they go, this was all, the gig is up, buddy.
All a facade.
It's a matter of time. Okay, let's begin with this. And, I recall last year during the Horizon League Championships at the fairgrounds, seeing all of the trophies on display for Division I, Division II, and Division III. And that's when, it was pointed out to me, hey, next year, meaning obviously the weekend that is upon us, all of these championships are going to be settled in Indianapolis for the NCAA and college basketball. And I don't know the answer to this, so I'm legitimately asking, is this unprecedented of having all the division levels in one place for the same weekend?
Well, that is not. It is rare, but what is unprecedented is having not just Divisions 1, 2, and 3 men's national champions crowned, but also the NIT national champions. So we're going to have in Cambridge on Sunday 3 champions crowned with Division 2, 3, and NIT. And then, of course, on Monday in Lucas Oil Stadium, the Division I champion will be crowned. That is a first.
Okay, and so I would imagine that means, and there are various entities that have to come together for this. I mean, Pacer Sports and Entertainment, because it's at Cambridge Fieldhouse, obviously the Sports Corps and Lucas Oil Stadium, and then the NCAA as well. When did the cross-pollination planning for all of this begin?
Years out. The NCAA right now has already locked in their Final Four destinations through 29. And I think, Jake, it was probably 3 years ago when I joined a group to go to Houston, and it was Visit ND, CIB, Sports Corp. I was there as a Sports Corp board member in Horizon League as a co-host, IUND. We had Pacer Sports Entertainment. And everybody goes to pitch in front of the men's basketball selection committee. So they don't just see the bracket. They also decide where the championship locations are. And essentially, it's a pretty, as you might expect, in-depth process with a pretty slick PowerPoint and video explaining to them why we deserve to have yet another Final Four. So we were pitching 29 when we had already locked in 26.
Who determines the logistics of, once you know all the schools that are coming here, and these are the little things that I find fascinating in this. All of these teams have to stay somewhere. All of the, right. The support staff, the cheerleaders, the bands, all of it, right? And so all of a sudden, like on Sunday night, is the staff at the University of Mary Washington suddenly getting on Booking.com and finding the local Howard Johnson? Like, how does it work, and how is that all determined?
It is all taken care of by the NCAA and then staff, and you've got Dan Gavin and Joanne Scott, who are really the force behind the NCAA machine running all of March Madness. But then you also have, for instance, in Indy, and of course I'm biased, but I think we're the best, you have local organizing committees. So, for instance, Kelly Ford, Senior Associate Commissioner of the Horizon League, serves on this overarching local organizing committee with, I'm guessing, 300 people across the community and serving within different groups, whether it's team hosts, behind the scenes, like there's so many different pieces of it. But the travel, making sure that those teams have not just one, but multiple contacts. And this isn't just for Indy. This is for the early rounds too. So whenever we host a first and second round, we've got a core group of volunteers prepared to welcome the teams coming. And then of course for the regional sites and then this year with the Final Four. But the NCAA's got a travel agency, to your direct question, that reaches out to those teams, works with their director of operations, secures their travel. The local host of all the early rounds and then the Sweet 16, they've already secured hotels, and then it's just a matter of assigning.
Is your involvement, Julie Roash is my guest. She's with Pacer Sports and Entertainment, formerly with the Horizon League. Is your role and involvement in some of this, when you made that transition from collegiate level commissioner over to Pacer Sports and Entertainment, obviously there's value in your ability to know both sides of the coin here, but did your involvement or your role within this great undertaking shift somewhat, or did you just stay with kind of finishing off any responsibilities you may have had from the beginning?
It really did shift because the Horizon League and IU-Indy, they're really the co-hosts. So the HL team is still very much leading that. I'm, of course, here as they need me. But Jake, to directly answer your question, I went from being assured of really good Final Four seats to having to ask my friends for some.
Okay. That's an honest way of saying it, right?
Yes.
Did you get a seat, by the way? Are your friends surrendering
it worked
seats?
Out. Yes. Thankfully, since I worked in college sports for so long, I've still got a lot of friends in the business, and they've been very gracious.
By the way, I was just telling Eddie this. We do fun facts with each team in the tournament. Now, Hawaii did not make it to the Final Four, but if they had gotten here, you could have gotten, and I know this. Have you been to Hawaii, Julie?
I have, yes.
Do you happen to know the state fish of Hawaii?
I don't.
It's the huma huma nuku nuku apuaha. And if you ever meet anybody from Hawaii and you say, I actually know that the state fish is the huma huma nuku nuku apuaha. I was just explaining this to Eddie because he's getting ready to go to Hawaii. If Hawaii had made the Final Four, they not only would have given you a ticket, they would have given you their entire allotment, if you know that. That is a fun fact about Hawaii that people go crazy if you know that. I'm just telling you this because on this program, we designed to educate and entertain, and I gave up on the entertainment factor a long time ago. But if I can educate about the huma huma nuku nuku apuaha, then have at, right?
So you can say the state fish. Can you spell it?
I can, actually. The only problem with that is it's long enough. The show's over at 3, and I ain't got time. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But I will tell you this. If you were going to buy a vowel to try to spell out huma huma nuku nuku apuaha, you actually got to take out a loan for that to spell out the vowel. Okay, so again, this all undergoing, the Pacer Sports and Entertainment, I would assume, has involvement in the fact that Sunday is the big day for them because that's when Gamebridge Fieldhouse is being used. But then Does Gamebridge also, or the Pacer Sports and Entertainment staff, also lend support staff to everything that will be going on, notably Monday night with the national championship?
Well, like many organizations, we've got staff volunteering in different ways. I think probably one of the most worthwhile pieces where we've been able to be involved as Pacer Sports Entertainment was we hosted the first ever Jim Morris Day of Service on March 24th. And Jake, I know you're a history buff. That happened to be the same day that the NCAA hosted its very first Final Four so many years ago.
1939, right?
You would know that date better than me. But that's to be able to launch a day of service. And it was not just a day of service, it was also to essentially beautify the city. And That includes small things like picking up trash and wrapping trash bins, but planting flowers with Keep Indianapolis Beautiful, packing backpacks to reward the kids that participated in the Million Minutes Read Towards Read to the Final Four. So we held a press conference and just a really nice community gathering that morning, and then over 800 people stepped up to volunteer throughout the day in various shifts around the city. And we were proud to be a leader in organizing that effort alongside the NCAA and Sports Corp.
You know, I don't know if you know, Julie, Elliot Bloom, who's the director of basketball operations at Purdue, but we had Elliot on, during Purdue's tournament run here. And he made an interesting comment where he said, you know, Jake, I almost feel sorry for schools that are going through this for the first time because of all of the logistics that go into traveling in the tournament and advancing from a round and figuring out getting your assignment for travel and et cetera. Does the same hold true for putting on events like this? Do you look at a city that is undergoing it the first time and almost think to yourself, man, I remember what that was like? And does a city kind of learn with each time they do this a new wrinkle to improve it?
I think cities absolutely learn because it's the people, right? Like anywhere, the city is not just it's not the buildings, it's the people that are really hosting. And in Indy, I mean, we are a sports city, and it's just part of our fabric and our DNA. And you see our volunteers really come to life with this whole notion. And I think Rick Fuson calls it, it's our spirit. It's that Hoosier spirit of hospitality. Like we take pride in if people don't look at maps anymore, right? They're looking at their phone. But if they look like they're lost, you walk up to them and say, hey, how can I help you? Glad you're here. That's just easy to do. But to your point of wrinkles, I think where we really had an inside track that other cities didn't is we hosted all of March Madness in 2021. So it wasn't just 3 games, which just 3 games is a pretty massive undertaking when it's the Final Four. It was 67 over 3 weeks across 6 venues across our state. So we already had an edge because we host so many of these mega sport events, but I think that didn't just put us on the map, that really put us in a different stratosphere in terms of being able to handle pretty much any logistics thrown our way in the midst of a pandemic.
I don't know what it says about me, but I've noticed lately that when I walk around, people do come up and ask if I'm lost and can help. I don't know what that means, but I noticed it last week, and I thought, wow, people are friendly down here in Alabama. Everybody keeps asking if I need anything.
Are you turning your phone? It's vertical, horizontal. That's what's cueing them, maybe.
That's usually a cue, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Julie, I wanted to ask this as well. Julie Roash is my guest. She was formerly with the Horizon League, now with Pacer Sports and Entertainment, and we'll get you the full schedule, everybody, of games upcoming, including a very busy Easter Sunday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse coming up Sunday with championships for the NIT as well as Division 2 and 3 that are taking place. Julie, when you look at the Horizon League itself, and I know that, there are championships that were just held at the Coliseum and the Fairgrounds, and now the announcement that they will move that to up where the Noblesville Boom play, if I'm not mistaken, in Noblesville for next year, and that move. But the Horizon League in general and the moving forward with the NCAA tournament and in even trying to get to the point of always trying to become a 2-team league, which everybody does because of the financial aspect that comes with that. What are some of the challenges or, for that matter, even optimistic aspects of the Horizon League? And I bring up that league because you work there, but also because they're based right here in Indianapolis.
Sure. We're seeing now with the whole landscape shift of name, image, likeness, or NIL, that gap between the highly resourced programs, which are mainly the Power 4 conferences, and I'd throw the Big East in there too, and the rest is just widened. So that makes it harder for a league as strong as the Horizon League to say, yes, our strategy, and we're going to judge success and failure by getting a second team in. Where our league shifted, and I think some others have, is saying, yeah, of course we would love to have a second team in, but for our league champion, we also care a whole lot about what seed they have in that NCAA bracket. So, for instance, when Oakland a few years ago was awarded the 13 seed instead of the 14 seed, and then that matched them against Kentucky, they were the best they were a very strong 13 seed. I think Kentucky was the worst 4th seed, if that makes sense.
Right, the way they rank them, right.
Right. But the point was that really mattered, even though it was still an upset and people are still talking about it. Had Oakland been a 14 seed, the chance of them winning goes down pretty significantly. And then, frankly, the real barrier is if you can break a 12 seed or better, then your chances of winning, as you might expect, really start to climb into realistic. So, yeah, you see 12 seeds win and it's an upset, but not nearly as much statistically speaking as a 13, 14, 15, and then, of course, 16, or those we can list those on one hand. So from a Horizon League perspective, it's a long answer, but we started to really say, hey, the strategy here isn't just to get a second team in, it's to really have a strong seed path. Because even winning a game, then you earn another unit, and that has the same financial impact as getting a second team in.
How hard is it, though, because part of elevating your profile to improve your seeding would be playing games in November or December that go into that quad 1 or quad 2, but yet isn't it difficult for an Oakland or an IUND or a Robert Morris to go and schedule a Power 4 school, because those schools see that as high risk, little reward, right?
Well, not necessarily, because the power schools like the win, right? Because they're either trying to build their team and bring them together, especially now because it's mainly new rosters. So they're willing to pay teams to come in. So it's a nice payday for our school, for the mid majors. And for instance, the Oakland year when they had the 13 seed, they played Xavier. They won, and that ended up being a quad 1 because it was on the road for them. But then they also went on the road and played 3 or 4 other Power 4 schools, lost, but the margin, they didn't get blown out.
Right.
And the margin matters whenever it comes to the NCAA statistics, or net as it's called. So it ended up like all of those factors matter, but what you do before league play starts for any conference really matters, how you're seated once Selection Sunday comes around.
It's my understanding that when this is all, Julie Roash is my guest from Pacer Sports and Entertainment, and there's a lot of work to be done between now and the end of the weekend. And then with anybody, you like to kind of get away once all of the work is done and maybe catch your breath a little bit. Now, my understanding is that you occasionally will go fish when you relax. Is that correct?
I do, yes. I don't fish for that Hawaiian state fish, but I love to bass fish.
Okay, so have you ever caught a reef triggerfish by chance?
I have not.
Are you familiar with the reef triggerfish?
No.
Okay, well, that's kind of the common term for it, more specifically known as the huma huma nuka nuka wapuaha, which happens to be the state fish of Hawaii, and that is spelled, if you'd like to look it up, Humu, Humunuk, Unuk, Uapua, little squiggly thing, A.
Apostrophe?
Well, it's an apostrophe, but it's Hawaiian, right? So it's kind of like those rolls. Like you think it's a roll, but it's a Hawaiian roll. It tastes a little different, a little sweeter. There's a little sweeter apostrophe.
The most impressive part about that, Julie, is that he was staring at me the entire time. He wasn't reading off like a monitor screen or
Julie,
anything like that.
Listen, Julie, and I know that you've got bigger fish to fry here, pardon the pun, on your day, but I should leave you with this, just so you know. You are talking to the 1984 Allisonville Elementary School spelling bee runner-up, and would you like to know the word that ousted me in the spelling bee?
Yes, really curious.
I'm sure that this is at the top of your list of things that you were thinking about today. Carfare is the word that I missed. Carfare. Now, I went Carfa, and then all of a sudden I thought of that scene from Breaking Away where the guy has the car lot with all the flags everywhere, and quite frankly, I choked, and I went IR, Carfare. Okay, well, it's obviously Carfare. Now, Jody Shear had to spell a word to win the spelling bee. So I still have a hope and a prayer here, right? I still have a hope and a prayer.
Right.
Like I'm Braylon Mullins. The ball's coming back to me. I've got a shot here, right?
Let's take it.
Jody Shear, you want to know the word she had to spell to win?
Yes.
Car hop. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right?
Well, it was you guys were probably in overtime. That's my guess. So they had to give her a gimme just to close it down.
Well, I will tell you, it speaks volumes about the spelling aptitude of Allisonville Elementary School that the final two, and we were only into the C's of the actual listing of words.
Fair.
And the fact that she got car hop. 42 years later, I've never once seen Jody Shear in my life without mentioning car hop incredulously because I consider it to be one of the great Rob jobs in the history of sport. Yes, Eddie.
Julie, I do have a question. With all three of these games happening on Sunday between the NIT Championship, Division II, and Division III, is there a ticket that someone can purchase to see all three games, or is every game ticket sold individually?
No, one ticket gains you admission for all three.
Are tickets still available?
Yes,
Okay.
we would love to see you. Come join us.
Because that, honestly, that is what an awesome opportunity to come down. And I also noticed, by the way, in the schools that are participating in this, okay, you've got the University of Mary Washington and Emory. That is the Division III championship. Division II championship, Gannon and Lander. And then the NIT, of course, the finals will be set as well. I did notice, we did some research on this, Julie. The University of Mary Washington was originally labeled as, when it opened in 1908, the normal school for women. Now, I'd like to know what the women were like at the rival school, for what it's worth, right?
That's fair, yes.
Normal school for women, but that is now Mary Washington, named for the mother of George Washington, who also had mashed potatoes. Julie, we appreciate the time, as always, and probably will try to make it over on Sunday. It's going to be a great day of basketball, great weekend of basketball, and on behalf of not just myself, but the fans and the people of Indianapolis, thank you to you and everybody else for helping put it together, because once again, it'll be the ultimate stage for our fair city. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's our privilege.
Julie Roash joining me on the program. And by the way, I think, Eddie, just so you know, when you're in Hawaii, do not go fishing for the huma huma nuku nuku apua.
I don't think you can, yeah.
I think it's a protected species
Yes.
there. It is the official fish of the state, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't go in Indiana. If people find out that you're running around and you're grabbing cardinals and you're going to have a problem there, right?
Right. And also to not touch the sea turtles.
Oh, really? Also protected, right?
Apparently they get aggressive.
They are. They're yappers is what they are, right?
Yappers.
They are. Now, just so you know, also, the peony. Do you know the peony is the state flower of Indiana?
I do.
Now, that's this is the time of year we're entering into peony season, but you only have, they are a little bit like the Mackinac peaches. You have 3 weeks to get them. Literally, if you go into a store and you try to buy a peony, they'll let you know, like, no, we're not in peony season. And then peony season literally is like 19 days. I've never actually had a peony. I think I'd like to have a peony just because it's the state flower of Indiana. And I believe, can you look this up for me, please, Eddie? The state tree of Indiana, I want to say it's the dogwood, but I could be incorrect in that. You would think the sycamore. The dogwood might be Virginia. I had to do my state report on Virginia in 5th grade, and I may be thinking of Virginia.
Ooh, it's not. It is not a dogwood.
Is it sycamore?
It is not sycamore.
I should know this. I'm a little embarrassed that I don't know this. First letter, please.
T.
The tulip tree?
Yes.
Is it really?
Not to confuse with the 3-lip tree, yeah.
Okay. The tulip tree, really?
Yes.
I would think that surprises me, because you would think the tulip tree would have some rivalry with the peony.
It
right?
was designated as the official state tree in 1931.
Okay. The cardinal is the state bird, right? It's on our driver's license, right? Can you look up the state bird of Indiana? I'm pretty sure it's the cardinal.
The northern cardinal, yes. Not to be confused with the eastern or southern or western or south northern.
The northern of Indiana cardinal?
Yeah, the northern cardinal is the official state bird
Is
of
that
Indiana.
the northern Indiana cardinal, or just the northern cardinal in general?
The northern cardinal in general.
So if you found a cardinal in Madison or Evansville, is it still a northern cardinal?
That's a good question.
It would have to be, right? I mean, Southport's the Cardinals. They're kind of right in the middle. But I would think that it's got to mean northern cardinal, meaning northern half of the United States, not to be confused with the southern cardinal, right? Which very, very polite, the southern cardinal, for what it's worth. Carly Ursay-Gordon did talk about the situation with both the coach and the general manager of the Colts, did so from the owners' meeting. We'll let you know what she had, and we'll decipher it next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Love this song. You familiar with the song, Eddie?
I am familiar with the song, yes.
You ever had anybody break your stride?
No. Well, you sometimes. Depends on the day.
It's cloudy out again. I think today, actually, we've had like this fairly fun, productive show. I think today represents the antithesis of the look outside the window, does it not?
We have discussed the Huma Huma Nuku Nuku Apawaha to the nth degree. We just discussed cardinals.
It's the tulip poplar, I'm told, by the way, the state tree.
Really? Not the unpopular?
Exactly. The tulip poplar is, because it's from Indiana, it's a little bit more popular, right?
Did you know the northern cardinal, Jake, is the state bird of 7 states?
Can I guess the states?
Well, you already know one.
Indiana.
Correct.
I'm going to go with Illinois.
Correct.
I'm feeling just a twitch of North Dakota here.
No.
And that's probably the penguin. Okay, Pennsylvania.
No.
How far north are we talking? What's the southernmost state that claims the northern cardinal?
The southernmost state?
Yes. Oh, I'll go with Arkansas.
No.
Arkansas, another strong suit I have, another odd characteristic and skill that I know.
Okay.
I can tell you the state nickname for every state. Like Arkansas, by the way, is the natural state. I'll go one more guess. Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania would be incorrect.
Okay,
So
who
the
we
7
got?
states, the northern cardinal is the state bird of Indiana, Illinois,
Okay.
Kentucky,
Okay.
North Carolina, Ohio,
No, hold on. Okay.
Virginia, and West Virginia.
North Carolina.
Yep.
How confused are the northern cardinals that are in North Carolina? Does that just mean the northern part of Carolina?
Well, they obviously don't go to South Carolina because they're not South Cardinals, Jake.
I guess, right? Is that where they draw the line?
I guess.
Okay.
So there you go.
Out in Arizona, the Grand Canyon State, by the way, Carly Ursay-Gordon talked with J.J. Stankovitz of the Colts and talked about the relationship between Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. And I'm going to go back to what I talked about earlier. A couple of things when it comes to Carly Ursay-Gordon. Number one, I know that, like when she's walking the sidelines and she's wearing the headsets and she's got the notepad and she's writing things down, that's an easy point of cynicism. It's an easy thing to look at that and say, oh, like, what is she even doing here? And I get it. But I think somewhat, and I won't even go to make it a gender issue, even though I think that comes in play. But a lot of it is just an age thing and has not worked elsewhere, at least publicly. And so therefore there's people are always, whenever you have someone that is in a family business and they inherit the family business, even if they've been around it forever, the immediate reaction for people is going to be to find reasons why it's not going to work. And in her case, things that truthfully she may do on the sidelines, if it was somebody that was a member of the Rooney family that had been around forever and, had owned the team for 15 years, nobody would think anything of it. But they want to point out the oddity of it because she's new in that position. It's unusual for that position. And frankly, from a gender standpoint, she is in a minority in that position. And so therefore there's a natural skepticism that some people are going to have. But what it indicates to me is that she is observant. Whether she is observant to the point of ingesting and remembering and recalling and reflecting upon the important aspects of it, I don't know. But it appears as though she is observant of everything going on around her. And if she is, she has to undoubtedly be aware of the precedent of what happens when you have a general manager and a coach that are not on the same page. And she invariably witnessed the oddity, there's that word again, of when Jim Irsay held the press conference with Chuck Pagano and Ryan Grigson. And everybody was anticipating and waiting for when we got the memo, there was a press conference. We all got word there was going to be a press conference, and everybody was like, okay, which is it? Grigson or Pagano? Grigson or Pagano? And the Grigson or Pagano discussion went on for a very long time. Which one's it going to be? And at that time, the thought process was for certain that Pagano was gone, or that Grigson was gone, or maybe both. And then Jim Irsay comes out and says, we had the meeting and tears were shed, and this was like at 9 o'clock at night. And they're attached at the hip, and they did the press conference, and Grigson looked very uncomfortable, and Pagano looked almost in shock. And here it is, the photo op of the three of them up there, and everybody is thinking to themselves, is this going to work? And it didn't. And obviously then Grigson was the one let go. And let me also go back to say, I didn't have much relationship with Ryan Grigson. It would be disingenuous to say that I have a relationship with him now, but certainly a line of communication that I do or have had and have really liked him. The same with Chuck Pagano. I like both of them. I think both are really decent people and had some things they did really well. Both of them had some things they did not do as well. But at the time that Jim Irsay made the decision that he was going to hold on to both, later when things really went south, the Colts then did a third-party, essentially inventory or examination or study of the culture within the building. And based on that, it was determined that Ryan Grigson is the one that they needed to part ways with, and they did. And then you had Chris Ballard brought in, who now had essentially a lame duck coach who was in one kind of transitional year of a trial period. And it just never worked, because that wasn't the coach that Chris Ballard hired. It was one that he essentially inherited. And then he goes and he picks Josh McDaniel, and that doesn't work out. So then Jim Irsay says, I think Frank Reich is the guy. Now Frank Reich comes in, and again, I'm not saying that he and Ballard didn't get along, but it never totally worked, and it wasn't really Ballard's. Frank Reich indicated a situation where the owner usurped the authority to an extent of the general manager. And I think Carly Irsay-Gordon observed all of this and took note of all of this. And now, in a situation where people are insistent that they get rid of one or the other, and in some cases, many fans felt both, I think she thought about the precedent and realized that having a GM that's a 10 and a coach that's a 6 can work so long as they're side by side. I'm not saying that's what these two guys are. I'm saying generically speaking. Or if you have a coach that's a 10 and a GM that's a 6, it can work so long as they're working side by side. You have a coach that's a 10 and a GM that's a 10. If they don't get along and they don't see things and complete each other's sentences, you got a problem. And I think she feels like she has two men that can complete each other's sentences. And that sort of chemistry is important to her.
With Chris and Shane, obviously, I think one of the biggest pieces I always say is, we did a regression analysis a long time ago about, what is sort of I don't want to call it the kiss of death for where a general manager and a head coach don't succeed. And one of the things that we found is when you simultaneously hire them, and when you think about it, it makes total sense. Mm-hmm. So imagine hiring one person that has to do this, another person, and you just are like, I hope you get along, versus I think that, Chris, with his tenure with us, I think we were able to go out when we found Shane and really make sure that we had someone that complemented Chris's style. And I think they have a great relationship. I love working with them.
I think that's important to her, honestly. Now, that's not to say this isn't a big year. And it is, obviously. It is definitely a big year. And if I think, I still believe this as well. Understandably so. There are so many things that have gone into, because again, there is no, I get uncomfortable when people say the untimely passing, as if there's a good time to lose a loved one. But relatively speaking, one would assume the unexpected passing. I mean, Jim Irsay had his challenges from a health standpoint. We know this. But it's still, I would assume it's still, there were like challenges that came into and came with that transfer of power, of just the onslaught and what had to be literally a fire hose of information of stuff you've got to wade through between, taxes and inheritance and, the overall ownership stature of it, and figuring out the sales of this and that, all of it. I totally understand how football would have legitimately become like secondary of everything else you've got to wade through. It's like all of us, people will ask me like, hey, what are you doing for this race or that race? And I'm like, let me get through this weekend first, and then I can look at that. I can't even look at that until I tackle this. And there has to be an overwhelming nature of Carly Irsay Gordon, with everything that she and her sisters have had to undergo in the last year. There had to be a fair amount of football responsibilities that were relegated to Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen under simply the guise of, look, I don't have time to get into this right now. We have so many other things that we have to tend to. Please be the keeper of the house for right now until I come back. And we can talk from an X's and O's, wins and losses, touchdowns scored, touchdowns allowed standpoint till the cows come home about the football aspect of how well they did that. But for right now, it may well be that she's like, hey, what they did do is allowed me to then work on other things. Now it's time to focus on the football aspect of it. And at the very least, I can find some peace, some comfort, and relief to an extent over knowing that I am able to do that with two gentlemen that I have familiarity with and that worked well with one another without me having to oversee it from every moment of the last year, because there were so many other things going on. But we'll see. And again, by the way, she mentioned that they are complimentary of one another. Did I ever tell you about the time, Eddie, it was this past weekend when I was did I tell you what happened to me down at Barber when I went to get something to eat?
No.
I'm sitting there, and usually after a race weekend, I go back to the hotel and I change, because I always call it race sludge. You just got on you that combination of sunscreen and sweat and, exhaust, all that, right? But for the Barber Motorsports Park, for the race in Birmingham, I actually call that race from inside a venue. So, like, I'm not hot, sweaty, whatever else.
I saw the picture that I think it was IndyCar Radio posted. You had a nice little setup there.
Yeah, it's in the museum. Thank you for correcting me earlier on the way I say it.
I did not correct you because I said it the way you do.
Well,
museum.
I've always said museum. But either way, I got done and I went to go get something to eat and watch the end of the Iowa-Illinois game. And I sit down and I'm sitting at the bar top across from the hotel, and I'm sitting there and I hear someone say to me, "Your hair looks fabulous." It startled me. Truthfully, it startled me. And my hair did look fabulous though. And we wear a black shirt that says IndyCar Radio on it, and I usually go change before I go get something to eat, but I didn't have to do that. I just went straight out. And then I was eating, Eddie, and I heard this. Are you ready for this? That black's an awfully slimming color. And I looked around, I was literally the only person in there. And you hear a lot of stories about like hauntings and things like that in the Deep South in particular. And I thought, you know what? I mean, I've been around race cars all day. I'm probably hearing something. I'm not even sure. And so I went ahead and ordered what I could or what I wanted. And then finally, one more time. And at this point, I was getting a little freaked out, but I heard, look great with a tan. So now hair, tan, the black, slimming black color.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to make a scene. And I mean, we just come from the track.
You not wanting to make a scene,
know.
that's a first.
But I did call over the bartender and relayed this to him and told him that I was like, I'm sorry, do you have is there somebody behind the bar that I can't see? And he looked around and we couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And then finally he goes, oh, wait a minute. It just dawned on me. I said, what? And he goes, all that's coming from right below you. And I looked down, there was a little dish there. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, the peanuts, they're complimentary. I mean, do you ever, honestly, when you go home, do you ever say to whoever you go home to, whether it be your girlfriend or your parents, or, when you see them from time to time, do you ever say, you don't realize how lucky I am that 3 hours a day I get for free? I mean, you're getting paid to be here, right?
Uh-huh. I get paid.
Well, last I checked, that might be, we may have to look into that as well.
Yeah.
After that,
this feels more like your therapy sessions every single day.
That's right. After that scheduling snafu, that's also in question, right? We'll go over the schedule for you again this weekend, let you know what's happening tomorrow. And JMV, I think, is in the building. I haven't seen him yet, but we'll do the crossover with John, find out what he's got loaded up. That will be, of course, brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com is the website. 317-353-2141, the telephone number.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This song was in the minivan extravaganza playlist on the drive back from Barber Motorsports Park.
Was it really?
Oh, yeah. Great song. Alex Wolff singing this song is something to be had. You know what I mean?
Does he just talk or does he actually sing?
He just kind of says, "This is a jam." But it is a great song.
What kind of music does Alex Wolff like?
Alex Wolff, who works with us in IndyCar Radio, Ball State grad, the pride of Lima, Ohio, is a huge fan of, he's kind of an older soul. So he likes like Van Halen, 80s stuff. He's the youngest of
so he's
three.
like me.
Yeah.
Except I'm the oldest of three.
He's Alex and you're Eddie.
That's right.
I mean,
here we go.
Find yourself a David Lee
or
now you're
Sammy.
talking. Or a Sammy. What do you got going on tonight, Eddie? Anything exciting?
Sirs and Bulls tonight, Jake, out in Chicago. Or, as some say, Chicago.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's what I've got tonight. 7:30 pregame on the Fan with Pat Boylan. Eddie White will take over probably around 10:45 with the world's greatest postgame show.
On the show tomorrow, by the way, Steve Alford going to join us about 1 o'clock. He is in town, going to be honored with Athletes in Action. Actually, he's being honored, but I think he's going to join us 1 o'clock tomorrow. Also, I know Jason Gardner's doing the morning show. He's going to join us at 2:30 in the afternoon as well to talk Arizona.
Double dipping on Jason Gardner this week, are we?
What's that?
Double dipping on Jason Gardner?
It would appear so. We probably
just got some coordination around here. What the hell?
I know, right?
Somebody going to coordinate?
J&V has arrived, by the way.
Yeah,
nice
I'm
AC/DC
here.
shirt.
How about that? This is it, too. This is a concert tee right here. Razor's Edge. What year was that? Early 90s? Razor's Edge?
Does it have Thunderstruck on it? If
Is that
so, that's
Thunderstruck?
90 or 91, right?
I thought Thunderstruck was 90. I thought that's when that was.
I think Thunderstruck is 90, yeah.
Front and back. Front and back means it's the real deal.
Fair enough. What's on the big show today?
We got Iron Eagle, voice of the Final Four. Josh Schertz, the head coach of St. Louis, lost to Dusty May in Michigan in round number 2, I believe it was.
Yep.
Was it not? Somewhere along the lines there. But Josh is going to join us, and Bowen, I think, is going to be in here as well. April Fool's Day.
Have you been had yet?
I haven't even noticed it. So I just sent out something that said, it's really about higher understanding and intelligence and not anything about just a bunch of dorks giggling and frolicking in the universe that is their own dorkdom right there. Nothing like that. April Fool's Day's awful. It's so stupid.
Jake, have you got on anything?
Other than the wrong dates on the NCAA games for this weekend? No. I don't think so.
A bunch of dorks. April Fool's Day is just built around dorks. Seriously.
I thought yesterday it was kind of April Fool, and I don't mean this. I'm not trying to be funny here.
Yeah.
So maybe a bad segue on that, but I didn't even get into it earlier. But I thought it was interesting that Tiger Woods would issue a statement saying that he is stepping aside to get help for what is ailing him, which I understand and respect that. But it's kind of hard to do that when on the other side claim that you did nothing wrong, right? Which is it? You were fiddling with the radio or you need professional help?
We're doing something about it. We're being proactive, Jake, is what we're doing.
I guess.
It shows that we understand that there is an issue. There's not an overwhelming issue, but there's an issue there, and we're taking care of that issue.
Eddie, what about you? Have you had any? Maybe I did. To your knowledge,
You've been hanging around any dorks in there, Eddie? Oh, yeah, you do have one in there with you. I realize that, yeah.
No, he's not in here right now.
Well, Man Bun's in there with you.
He's not in here right
he's
now.
not?
No, he just popped out. I'm not outing anybody, but if you're listening, you know who you are. I did have 2 friends that got by the same tweet. They sent it in our group chat within like a minute of each other.
I get got by a tweet in September, so like April 1 doesn't mean a damn thing.
Right.
Seriously.
And the tweet was saying that like White Lotus Hotels has decided that Indianapolis will be its latest location, and across from Lucas Oil Stadium, the plans include a first-of-a-kind casino adjacent to the Indiana Convention Center.
Yeah.
And that's a April Fool's joke?
Oh, yeah. White Lotus Hotels isn't a real thing. That's a TV show.
Gotcha. I did know that. That's a series, right, from a couple years ago?
Mm-hmm. It's on HBO Max. Yeah, good show, actually.
Listen.
Somebody sent out that I was nominated for the Adult Film Hall of Fame.
Oh.
I am going to roll with that.
That's not an April Fool's. I already forwarded that.
I'm going to be in the class with Amber and Ginger Lynn.
There you go. All right, John's up next. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow.
I feel pretty good. This is going to be a good 3 hours right here, Jake. We may have some fun.
I like it. Steve Alford on the program tomorrow, and we will.
Hey, Jake, you gonna act? We all had our hair like Steve Alford back in the day.
I have a picture of me getting his autograph when I was in eighth grade. We had
said,
matching
will
hair.
you be sure to tell him that I went to Command Performance in the College Mall in Bloomington and said, "Give me the Alford. I want it butt cut, parted down the middle, feathered on the side, so I can put a comb on my back
and they
pocket."
knew exactly what it was, right?
Debbie said, "I got you."
Everybody also did socks, hips, 1, 2, 3 swish, right?
By the way, there's been some messages coming through on the text line, and I've seen some on the fan on Facebook. The location of the golf outing has not been changed. I don't know what that notification is about on Facebook. It's at the Legends Golf Course on April 30th.
Well, who thought it was different?
I don't know. There's a notification that was sent out to some people.
The same person that put Jason Gardner on back-to-back shows tomorrow? That person?
John's up next. Thanks for listening to Query & Company.